Meanwhile, Joe Biden had perhaps the worst day on the campaign trail, which I'll play for you in a second. But I want to begin with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who had his one debate with Amy McGrath last night, the Democrat Bobo doll. They sent up to be against her, and she's a Marine, which she tells you a million times, and that's great. I respect her service. I'm a civilian. I always say that. But, man, don't go into fight with Mitch McConnell unless you are prepared to actually lose. If you're doing this for the good of the party, fine, Amy McGrath, I salute you for it. But, okay, here's cut 28, Mitch McConnell taking her apart on policy grounds.
Well, what she supported after the CARES Act was the so-called HEROES bill over in the House, $3 trillion, which included in it, by the way, tax cuts for rich people in New York and California, health care for illegal immigrants. And by the way, that bill that she supported that they passed in the House after the CARES Act provided more money for Puerto Rico than it did for Kentucky. In spite of her best efforts, she's a national Democrat. She is in line with Schumer and Pelosi and all the rest on all of these issues.
No, she is. And she's going to vote for Chuck Schumer. Mitch McConnell then lays down this, cut 29.
My opponent said she's the most progressive person in Kentucky. What does that mean? That means they want to stack the Supreme Court. In other words, add numbers so they can get an outcome that they like. She wants to make the District of Columbia a state, Puerto Rico a state, get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. In short, there's not a dime's worth of difference between my opponent and all of the national Democrats that you've watched. If you give them control of the government, that's what they'll do.
Yeah, Mitch was just, that's all you need. Well, one more cut number 30, because she asked him ridiculous question after ridiculous question. Here is the last thing I'll play from Mitch last night, 30.
I'll give you a few seconds, Senator, if you want to respond to that. That was a little bit out of order in time.
You mean to her ridiculous comment?
Yes.
No.
All right. We'll move on.
Mitch McConnell. I know I'm on Louisville, Lexington, throughout the Bluegrass State. I know I got a great Kentucky audience. You have the best senator going. The guy who runs the Senate is the master of the Senate. He saved the Constitution 4 times. And you got to send him back because Kentucky's not stupid. But it's fun to watch anyway. Over at HughHewitt.com, I have listed links to every one of the Senate campaigns that can use your contribution. Now, if you want to be strategic, trust me on this, if you want to be strategic and you're a Republican, you go to and give money to the Senate Leadership Fund, because that's where the quarterback is. Mitch runs that. The Senate Leadership Fund deploys resources wherever they're needed. There's a counterpart on the Democratic side as well, Chuck Schumer's fund. But Republicans go to the Leadership Fund. But whether you want to support Senator Susan Collins, who I think has climbed into the lead, Senator Tom Tillis, we don't have any good polling. We saw a stupid poll yesterday that said Cal Cunningham has increased his lead since his affair was revealed. That's just stupid. That's not true. So you can put that aside. Tom Tillis in North Carolina. Lindsey Graham is going to win, but I would like him to win by 10 points just to show Democrats they can't buy seats. His opponent has raised, I think, $53 million in the last quarter. Send Lindsey some money. Doing a great job at the Senate Judiciary Committee. Send Lindsey Graham some money. Joni Ernst in Iowa is back in the lead. Senator Cory Gardner, I don't think is, but he's climbing. He's a great campaigner. There's a well of goodwill towards Cory Gardner out there. He's been one of Colorado's most relentless advocates. He helped pass the Great American Outdoors Act. And Senator Martha McSally, who is within, I think, a point now. Last survey I saw, she was down by 10 3 months ago, but she eviscerated Mark Kelly in the debate. And I think 700,000 Arizona voters saw that and said, okay, I'm giving money to Martha McSally. I'm going to help her out. I think she's in good shape. And I know the president is climbing in every national poll. I talked to 2 senators yesterday who are running, both of whom are confident, both of whom are feeling a lot better this week than they did last week when the president was in the hospital. The numbers were tanking. And since he's gotten out, every day it's gotten better. They do overnight polling, and they don't get it wrong. They can't afford to get it wrong. Overnight polling, daily increases for the president and them since he got out of the hospital. That is key. Now, Joe Biden, on the other hand, had the worst day ever yesterday. First of all, the memory problem, cut number 1.
You may remember I got in trouble when we were running against the senator who was a Mormon, the governor, okay? And I took him on.
The senator who was a Mormon, the governor. He can't remember Mitt Romney's name. Really? He can't remember Mitt Romney's name. Cut number 2, he gets what he's running for wrong.
You know, we have to come together. That's why I'm running. I'm running as a proud Democrat for the Senate.
You know, he's not running as a proud Democrat for the Senate. He also told a joke last night. Well, I'll play it for you. This is Joe Biden in Cincinnati yesterday, cut number 8.
You know, there's an old joke a long time ago. A particular senator said to me, this is back when I was much younger, I was in my second term, running for my second term. He said, Joe, I'll come to Delaware for you and campaign for you or against you, whichever will help the most. My offer still holds. I hope my endorsement didn't hurt you. And but all kidding aside.
Okay, that's not very funny. It's an old joke, but here's how he told it in 2012. It's only 8 years ago, cut number 9.
So as Jim Eastland said to me in 1978 when I was running for election, he said, he never called me Senator or Joe. He didn't call me son. He always called me young man. And he said, young man? He said, what would Jim Eastland do for you in Delaware? And I was in a tough re-election. I said, Mr. Chairman, some places you'd help and some places you'd hurt. And he looked at me, all kidding aside, in the Senate dining room with Herman Talmadge sitting there and said, well, I'll come to Delaware and campaign for you or against you, son, whichever will help you the most.
Jim Eastland was a stone-cold racist segregationist. Stone cold. So was Talmadge. Stone-cold racist segregationist. That was in 2012. Joe Biden knows to drop his name out, but doesn't know to stop telling the joke. It just is remarkable. Joe Biden then went to Toledo. Now, this is Ohio. Ohio is Trump country. And he says this, cut number 10.
Gallup reported last week 56% of Americans said that they were better off today than they were 4 years ago, would have been under the Obama-Biden administration. So why should people who feel that they are better off today under the Trump administration vote for you?
Well, if they think that, they probably shouldn't. They think 54% of American people are better off economically today than they were in our administration. Well, their memory is not very good, quite frankly.
So first insult the voters, but then tell everyone who answered Gallup, the best polling in the group, vote for him. He said 54, but it's 56%. So he just, have a landslide against me. Then he went to Cincinnati, and he's confusing Ted Kennedy with Robert Byrd, cut number 5.
When I first got to the United States Senate, I was 29, I was in Washington, and interviewing for staff using Senator Kennedy's whip office. And I got a
Kennedy was not the whip. He'd been ousted by Robert Byrd 2 years earlier than that. So that's a memory issue. This one is really strange. Cut number 6 in Toledo.
I read some stories after I got the nomination that, quote, if Biden gets elected, he'll be the first non-Ivy League school graduate to get elected in I figured it was 80 or 90 years. Guys, have a seat, man. You know what? Like some state school guy went to the University of Delaware. I was proud of it. Hard to get there, hard to get through.
Apparently, they didn't teach history at the University of Delaware. 7 of the past 15 presidents don't have an Ivy League attachment. President Hoover, President Truman, Ike, Johnson, Nixon, Carter, and Reagan. No Ivy League. He said 80 years. He said it. So he's just making stuff up. There are no stories out there that say that. It's just pandering. Okay, finally, this one gets me. Cut number 7.
I went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to the battlefield, where Abraham Lincoln told us that a house divided cannot stand.
All right, that offends me. It doesn't offend me. I just chuckle. Lincoln did not say that at Gettysburg. The Gettysburg Address is one of the shortest presidential addresses in history. It's on the wall of the Lincoln Memorial. It says nothing about the House divided speech. The House divided speech was given in pre-Civil War Illinois. It's just, yesterday he was a train wreck. You know what they've done today? They've called a lid on the campaign. They really can't let him out of the basement. Not for a full day. Not unless they've got the questions planted. They cannot do it. He's a train wreck. We'll compare that with Donald Trump afterwards. And of course, Amy Coney Barrett killed it yesterday. So did Ben Sasse. So did Josh Hawley. So did Mike Crapo. We'll play it all for you here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to hughhewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
This is Michael Medved at michaelmedved.com for Town Hall. The appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court counts as a masterstroke and easily one of the best decisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In an election season when liberals and media try to characterize conservatives as old, angry, bigoted, extreme, and lacking in empathy, Judge Barrett displays the opposite characteristics. At age 48, she's youthful, a genial consensus builder, and mother of 7, including a special needs child and 2 adopted kids from Haiti. On a court dominated for decades by Yale and Harvard graduates, she's a breath of Midwestern fresh air, beloved by her students at Notre Dame. Most importantly, she'll give new life to the originalist thinking of her mentor, Justice Antonin Scalia, in stressing what the Constitution actually says, not what Judge wanted to say. As Americans have been losing faith in public institutions, Judge Barrett can help to restore their confidence. I'm Michael Medved.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. If you're on a college campus today or have a child on campus, there's a solid chance you'll hear this. All white people are racist. You might hear this too. America is founded on white supremacy. These 2 sentences are not mere overheated emotion. They express an ideology called critical race theory, or CRT, which argues that race is a social construct made by white people. Just as race was once used to enslave and terrorize, so it is used today to keep America unequal, unfair, and hostile to minorities. The Trump administration just took symbolic and courageous action against CRT. It issued a memo to federal agencies calling for the end of the government's CRT racial sensitivity trainings, terming them divisive anti-American propaganda. Does America have real issues in its past? Yes. Have we made real progress that we must guard carefully? Also yes. The White House has led well here. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I have almost nothing to say about last night's debate. It was one of those things where I thought Mike Pence is masterful. The idea that he was able to contain himself and to respond in this measured way, no matter what Kamala Harris said. I thought that is seriously amazing to me in these passionate times in which we live. And I was in awe of his self-control. So that's all I'll say. What do you say?
Well, you know, he is a born-again Christian. He carries his faith very seriously, and I think that he represents that faith very well when he does things in public, and I thought last night was just an example of that. But there were a couple of things I was looking for, and I wanted to see if they were going to happen, and it took about 15 seconds into the debate for them to come true. One was I wanted to see how long it would take for the coronation to begin, and about 20 minutes into the debate, you already had CNN and MSNBC saying that Kamala was killing it and she was masterfully in control of the evening and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to see was, would she be the one of the two that would push the envelope with the emotional side of maybe overreaction? And it only took a few of those side-by-side shots where she's glaring at Pence while he's giving his response to whatever the question was. I mean, it wasn't like a gentle but placed smile. It was like, not only did
female
Pence,
Al Gore of color.
Keep up with what
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Speaking about coming close, Donald Trump made a joke last night, cut 26. Oops.
But now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful.
Now, he said he could go out and hug everybody and kiss everybody. That tape is all botched up. Let's listen to the longer one. This is the president in Sanford, Florida last night, cut 27.
Sleepy Joe Biden. Not a nice guy, by the way. I have to be honest. Not a nice guy. You know, people say, oh, he's such a nice guy. He had a very bad day today. He had a very bad day. You saw what happened. If I ever had a day like he had today, they'd say it's over. It's over. Now, Biden had a bad day. He forgot Mitt Romney's name. He didn't know what state he was in. And he said today he's a proud Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. No, you can't do it. It's the second time. Can you imagine if I did that? It's great to be with you. It's great to be a wonderful developer from New York. They'd say he's out of here. Get him out. Now, Biden had a bad day. He's got a lot of bad days coming. Look. We can't play games. The one thing I know for sure, President Xi of China did us no favor. President Putin of Russia. You looking around. Kim Jong-un. Whatever happened to the war we were supposed to be in with Kim Jong-un, right? Kim Jong-un, they're 100% sharp. We have somebody running who's not 100%. He's not 80%. He's not 60%. We can't have this. As a country, we can't have it. Joe Biden is also owned by the radical globalists, the wealthy donors, the big money special interests who shipped away your jobs, shut down your factories, threw open your borders, and ravaged our cities while sacrificing American blood and treasure in this ridiculous, endless set of endless wars that we've been in for a long time. 19 years. They're all coming back home. You know that, right? They're all coming back home, our great warriors, our great soldiers. The corrupt political class is desperate to regain their power by any means necessary. We're the ones standing in their way. We're the ones standing up for the American worker, the American family, and for the American dream. And that's what we're doing on this beautiful evening.
I got to tell you, the crowd around the president is amazing and energized. And as I've been reading Rick Gates's book, Wicked Game, he's going to be on tomorrow, former deputy campaign manager of the Trump campaign who got indicted by Mueller and was no part of any Russian conspiracy. But I'll tell you about that tomorrow when he's on. But he's talking about the campaign of 2016. These rallies are like an infusion of whatever you take to feel the best possible. Maybe it's Relief Factor plus Gatorade plus super vitamins or something. The president gets energized by them, and he was on his A game yesterday. And he's right. I got to go back to the Biden quote, which I think this is the stumble that I just can't believe. Cut number 1.
As you may remember, I got in trouble when we were running against the senator who was a Mormon. The governor, okay? And I took him on.
The senator who was a Mormon, the governor. Now, I greatly admire Mitt Romney. I helped him edit his campaign book. He's a friend. I think he's a great American. I know some of you love him to death and some of you don't like him very much, but I think he's one of the great guys in American politics. What I can't imagine is running against him and not remembering his name, which is what Joe Biden did. Could not remember his name. Oh well. Let me do the market report brought to you by Birch Gold. Go to hughgold.com if you want to move some of your retirement funds into the security of physical precious metals. I suggest 10, no more than 25%, but part of your IRA or your Roth. Go to hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747. I got asked yesterday by a friend, why should I do this? Why not just put it at home? I said, well, you can put it you can buy it from a broker and put it in your safety deposit box. But if you want to put serious money into gold, you don't want to have to lug it around with you whenever you move. You got to store it offsite, whatever. But you can get it all done through Birch Gold via hughgold.com. The market soared yesterday. I mean, just out of it's Amazon Prime plus a rally in the techs. And overseas, it's a little bit lower this morning. But I got to tell you, gold's at 1926, a good starting point. And we'll bring you up to date on where the market is going. It looks like another great day for tech. We'll tell you when we get back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I'm not going to declare victory yet, Dennis, but I hope, because this is like a zombie, this Fine People hoax. It just keeps coming back from the dead. Maybe it's at least on life support now because of the big assist.
Well,
from Vice President Pence.
the lie upon the lie is Joe Biden had no interest in running for president. It was Charlottesville that convinced him he needed to run. This man has been running for president for 47 years.
Right.
He never heard of Charlottesville, and he decided to run for president. I mean, the ease with which the left lies is breathtaking.
Right. Speaking of that, last night in the debate, it was interesting. The very first lie that Kamala told, it was I think about a minute in, literally, into the debate, and she actually used the word hoax, right? That was a lie, where she said that Donald Trump called the virus a hoax. And, of course, he never did. Even the Washington Post, by the way, conceived this. Even their fact checker said no. Of course, he was talking about the Democratic reaction to his coronavirus handling. He said that was a hoax. He never called the virus itself a hoax. And so she used the word hoax to lie, as I said, mere seconds into the campaign, into the debate. She lied quite a bit last night. She lied about her wish to ban fracking. We have this on videotape. I mean, these people are pretty bold in their lies. But again, the most pernicious lie, the most malicious for our society, has been the Fine People hoax, and we have to continue to spread the truth.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Because when John McCain was running in 2008, he's on The View. And one of the ladies says to him, "What happens if Roe v. Wade is overturned?" And I'm at home yelling, "It goes to the states. It goes to the states. And you live in a New York state, which is very liberal. Nothing's going to change." Instead, Senator McCain just went, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. But what kind of answer is that?
The wrong answer. Yeah. I mean, it's you're exactly right, and what I describe in the book One Vote Away, in the chapter on life, is for 200 years of our nation's history, laws on abortion were made at the state level, and different states had different laws. And if you wanted to change the laws on abortion, you did the same thing you did if you wanted to change any other laws, which is you tried to convince your fellow citizens your ideas were right and their ideas were wrong. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, "You silly voters, you don't get to decide this anymore. We're taking this out of your hand. The American people have no ability to resolve this question." And I think that decision, more than anything, politicized the court. It's the reason we have these ugly circus confirmations now. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they support unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion with no parental notification, no parental consent, and taxpayer funding for it all. Do you know, Larry, that only 9% of Americans support that radical extreme position? And yet that's what they want the court to mandate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
You've got the Speaker of the House saying something that is so telling to me. I've had a number of people text and call me and say, this 25th Amendment crap that Pelosi's pulling, this stunt, it isn't for Trump, it's for Biden. And as I think about it, and I'm listening to Nancy Pelosi's announcement, which we are just about to play for you. It's coming, I'm told, but this is just moments ago. Nancy Pelosi said, this is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters, but he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. You mean like Joe Biden if he wins? You know 59% of Americans polled by Rasmussen a couple of months ago don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term, right? 59. You know, in that same poll, 49% of Democrats don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term. Is Nancy Pelosi setting up the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden so we have President Kamala Harris? You be the judge. You listen to what Nancy Pelosi said moments ago, announcing a bill on the 25th Amendment.
This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters. But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents.
Keep up with what's trending.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Inside the Beltway. Yesterday, there were long lines of early voters in Georgia. We love to see people out to vote early. Keep America, America.com is a project of the Job Creators Network that sponsors this show, and they want people to vote. They want people to go and vote. I've already voted. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt's already voted. We don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. We want you to get out and vote, and we want you to do it early, so that we don't have confusion on Election Day and we don't have to wait for a week to find out who won the presidential election or Senate election. Keep America, America.com tells you where to vote, how to vote. It gets you to commit to helping one other person vote. I mean, you can do a little, you can do a lot, but do something. And Keep America, America.com has good, solid, trustworthy information. Proud to bring them to you. Keep America, America.com. There are going to be long lines because a lot of people do want to vote early. And they move pretty quickly. I had to wait in line for probably 5 minutes when I went into my Virginia voting booth. I voted 2 weeks ago. But some states right now, there's early voting in Arizona. Right now, if I was in Arizona, I'd be out there voting for Martha McSally, and I'd be driving everyone I know because she's a great senator. She's a terrific senator, and she's going to win. I don't think Arizona wants to be a blue state. They've already got one blue senator in Kristen Sinema. And I think Martha McSally is out there knocking on doors in Yuma. She's out there knocking on doors in Prescott. She's certainly everywhere in Phoenix, Paradise Valley. Martha McSally is a fighter, and she just destroyed Mark Kelly in that debate. And Mark Kelly has got real problems with the China connection. So just get out and vote early. Keep America, America.com. Now, yesterday, Josh Hawley gave a speech in the Senate Judiciary Committee. I want you to hear the whole thing. I believe that Susan Collins is the most influential senator and gives the most important speeches because she reflects dead center in the Senate. She's a moderate from Maine. She represents dead center in the Senate. There are a handful of Republicans I always listen to because they're so smart. Josh Hawley is one of them, and he spoke for me yesterday. I am an Article 6 subject matter expert, as they say. I wrote a book on Article 6, and Josh Hawley yesterday was singing to this choir, and I want you to hear it all. Cut number 17.
It's good to see you again, Jesse Barrett. Welcome, and to you and to your family as well. I see that some of your children are getting a break. They've earned it, I think. I'm amazed as I've been watching. I've got 2 little boys at home, my wife and I do. I can't believe how calmly your children have been sitting for a couple of hours. So maybe you can give me some tips, Jesse and Judge, when we're finished here. You know, we've gotten to read a lot about your family in the last few weeks. We've gotten to read a lot about you in the press, and in particular about your religious beliefs. One attack after another in the liberal media, one hit piece after another, many of them echoed by members of this committee, like this one, for instance, Barrett, long active with Insular Christian Group. We've read stories about your Catholic lifestyle, stories about how you raise your children, stories about how you adopted your children, stories about your Catholic doctrinal beliefs, over and over and over questioning whether you have, I guess, the independence to be a judge, a justice on the United States Supreme Court. And it's not just in the newspapers, it's members of this committee. including the Democratic nominee for Vice President of the United States, who has questioned past nominees who have come before this committee about their membership in Catholic fraternal organizations like the Knights of Columbus. And for those watching at home, that's right, you heard me correctly. Senator Harris and others on this committee have repeatedly questioned judicial nominees' fitness for office because of their membership in the Knights of Columbus. The ranking member, when you were last before this committee, Judge, for your initial confirmation hearings, the ranking member referred to your Catholic convictions as dogma, that's a quote, that lives loudly within you, picking up the very terminology of anti-Catholic bigotry current in this country a century ago. She wasn't alone. Other senators on this committee last time asked you if you were an Orthodox Catholic. One senator said she worried that you would be a Catholic judge if you were confirmed because of your religious beliefs, I guess as opposed to an American judge, as if you can't be both a devout Catholic and a loyal American citizen. And it's not just you, Judge. Other nominees who have come before this committee for years now have been asked by my Democrat colleagues over and over their views on sin, their views on the afterlife, their views about their membership statements of Catholic organizations, about their membership in other Christian organizations, and on and on and on. And let's be clear about what this is. This is an attempt to broach a new frontier, to set up a new standard. Actually, it's an attempt to bring back an old standard that the Constitution of the United States explicitly forbids. I'm talking about a religious test for office. Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States, before we even get to the Bill of Rights, Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States says clearly, and I quote, "No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States." Now, that was big news in 1787 when it was written, and it's worth remembering why. It's because no country, no republic in the history of the world had ever guaranteed to its citizens the right to freedom of conscience and religious liberty. Every other country that had ever existed tied together the religious beliefs that would be approved by the powerful and the right to serve in office or to vote or just to be a citizen. In every other country across history, you had to agree with what those in power agreed with in order to hold office or be a citizen in good standing. You had to sign a particular religious confession, or you had to disavow a particular religious group, swear not to follow the Pope, for instance. You had to pledge allegiance to the God of the city or the God of the empire. This was true from 18th century Britain all the way back to ancient Rome. And so when our founders put Article 6 into the Constitution of the United States, they were making a very deliberate choice. They were breaking with all of that past history, and they were saying in America it would be different. In the United States of America, we would not allow the ruling class to have veto power over your faith, over what Americans believed, over who we gathered with to worship and why and where and how. No, in this country, the people of the United States would be free to follow their own religious convictions, free to worship, free to exercise their religion, and people of faith would be welcome in the public sphere. They'd be welcome there. They'd be welcome without having to get the approval of those in power, like those on this committee. They would be welcome to come and to bring their religious beliefs to bear on their lives, on their office, and all that they do, so long, of course, as they were peaceful citizens who followed the law. Religious people of all backgrounds would be welcome in public life, and no person in power would be able to control what the American people, any American citizen, thought or believed or who they worshiped. This freedom of conscience and religious liberty undergirds all of our other rights, because it tells the government that it cannot tell us what to think or who we can assemble with or how we can worship or what we can say. And that's why Article 6 is there even before we get to the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment. But this bedrock principle of American liberty is now under attack. That is what is at stake when we read these stories attacking Judge Barrett for her faith. That is what is at stake when my Democratic colleagues repeatedly question Judge Barrett and many other judicial nominees about their religious beliefs, about their religious membership, about their religious practices, about their family beliefs and practices. That is an attempt to bring back the days of the religious test. That is an attempt to bring back the veto power of the powerful over the religious beliefs and sincerely held convictions of the American people. And that is what is at stake in this confirmation hearing. Judge Barrett is a Catholic. We all know that. She's a devout Catholic. We all know that. She and her husband have chosen to raise their family according to their Catholic beliefs in faithful fellowship with other Catholics. We all know that. Heck, 65 million Americans are Catholics, and many millions more are Christians of other persuasions. Are they to be told that they cannot serve in public office, that they are not welcome in the public sphere unless the members of this committee sign off on their religious beliefs? I, for one, do not want to live in such an America, and the Constitution of the United States flatly prohibits it. Now, the Constitution says that people of faith, like Judge Barrett, are welcome in high office, welcome in any office, welcome throughout our public life here in this country. And I would just say to my Democrat colleagues that these years now, this pattern and practice, as we say in the law, this pattern and practice of religious bigotry, because that's what it is. When you tell somebody that they're too Catholic to be on the bench, when you tell them they're going to be a Catholic judge, not an American judge, that's bigotry. The pattern and practice of bigotry from members of this committee must stop. And I would expect that it be renounced. Now, I just heard my colleague, Senator Coons, make a reference to an old case, the Griswold case, which I can only assume is another hit at Judge Barrett's religious faith, referring to Catholic doctrinal beliefs. I don't know what else it could be, since no one has challenged this case. It is not a live issue and hasn't been for decades. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about, and this is the sort of attacks that must stop. I look forward, Judge Barrett, to getting to the chance to speak with you further about your legal credentials, about your legal views, about your approach to the law and your judicial philosophy. But I hope that one thing that this confirmation process will stand for in the end, I hope when we look back at the confirmation hearings for Judge Amy Barrett, soon I hope to be Justice Amy Barrett, one thing we will say is that was the time, that was the year that the attempt to bring back religious tests for office was finally stopped. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bravo, Senator Josh Hawley. Now, you might not know, he clerked for Chief Justice John Roberts. He's the former Attorney General of Missouri. Mrs. Hawley didn't raise a dummy. Josh Hawley is very smart, but he's also passionate and he's informed. And he defended religious liberty yesterday the way I do often, because the stain on this country from religious bigotry, like the stain on this country from slavery and from racial bigotry and ethnic bigotry, is large in our history, but is gone now. Thank God. Now, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I'm an evangelical Christian, but I happen to always say I'm an evangelical Presbyterian Roman Catholic. Evangelical Roman Catholic Presbyterian is how I put it. That doesn't make me a Lutheran. That means I go to Mass on Saturday and I go to the Presbyterian Church with the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt on Sunday. There's one river with two banks, and I use both of them. And that's just me, but there are a lot of people like me. You know who protects me? Alliance Defending Freedom. They're probably going to get dragged today. But when you hear Alliance Defending, because Amy Coney Barrett has addressed, as I have for many years, the Blackstone Fellows, a program, the Alliance Defending Freedom, step up and defend them. Over at HughHewitt.com, at the very top of the page, you will see a banner that says, "Will you fight for your freedom? Give now." That's asking you to give money to Alliance Defending Freedom, the greatest legal defense fund in America right now, protecting people of conscience, protecting free speech, protecting you. Please give generously, especially when you hear them attacked today. Now, I heard Josh Hawley yesterday doing a 6-mile fast walk yesterday. It was raining, so I don't run in the rain. I'm afraid I'll fall down. It's the last thing I need. So I walk in the rain. I went a long way listening to the hearings. I'm going to do the same thing today, probably do 10, because the hearings are great. C-SPAN carries them. But I feel great today because of relieffactor.com, which I always take in the first hour, which I'm doing right now. With my lukewarm coffee, I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. 4 natural supplements. I take them every day. It's the only supplement I take. I do take a vitamin, and I do take vitamin D in this age of the virus. I think that helps. But I'll tell you one thing, relieffactor.com keeps me moving. It'll keep you moving, too, if you will give it a try. The starter pack is $19.95, 3-week trial. Give it a try and see if you can't get out there and start walking, start shedding those pounds, feel better every day with relieffactor.com. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
In the summer of 2016, right near the Republican convention, out of nowhere, there was chatter that started to surface.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
You know, after all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate. I just spoke to Steve Cortez of the campaign, and I think that they should make this point every day, all day. You elect the Democrats, and you ain't seen nothing yet in the crushing of your freedom and your economy. Why don't they make that point regularly?
That's a good question. I think maybe certainly the Trump campaign is disorganized now, with Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, testing positive, the president himself. So I'm not sure they're quite clear on which direction they're going in, not to mention dropping out of next week's town hall. But I agree with you. I think this is a vulnerability for the Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden now. It jumped out at me in last week's non-debate. The one thing Biden said that seemed clear was you cannot fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And last night in the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, the first thing Susan Page asked Kamala Harris was whether you and your boss, Joe Biden, would support further shutdowns.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, relieffactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Chairman Graham, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, running a very, very good hearing. Eventually, they did get to Amy Coney Barrett yesterday. Judge Barrett, I'll play a few bits of her remarks, but let's listen to cut 22 when she finally got to speak after hearing all of the senators talk.
And with appreciation for those who have come before me. I was 9 years old when Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman to sit in this seat. She was a model of grace and dignity throughout her distinguished tenure on the court. When I was 21 years old and just beginning my career, Ruth Bader Ginsburg sat in this seat. She told the committee, "What has become of me could only happen in America." I have been nominated to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat but no one will ever take her place. I will be forever grateful for the path she marked and the life she led. If confirmed, it would be the honor of a lifetime to serve alongside the Chief Justice and 7 Associate Justices. I admire them all and would consider each a valued colleague. And I might bring a few new perspectives to the bench. As the President noted when he announced my nomination, I would be the first mother of school-aged children to serve on the court. And I know that it would make Senators Young and Braun happy to know that I would be the first justice to join the court from the 7th Circuit in 45 years. I would be the only sitting justice who didn't attend school at Harvard or Yale, but I am confident that Notre Dame could hold its own, and maybe I could even teach them a thing or two about football. As a final note, Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank the many Americans from all walks of life who have reached out with messages of support over the course of my nomination. I believe in the power of prayer, and it has been uplifting to hear that so many people are praying for me. I look forward to answering the committee's questions over the coming days. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed, I pledge to faithfully and impartially discharge my duties to the American people as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Powerful opening statement yesterday. There were some other great statements. Senator Mike Crapo, cut number 20.
In September 2017, Judge Amy Coney Barrett came before the Senate Judiciary Committee, this committee, after being nominated to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit. During that hearing, she repeatedly expressed her commitment to independent and unbiased decision-making. I was proud to support her confirmation to the Court of Appeals in both the committee and on the Senate floor. Judge Barrett's remarkable resume shows she is a pioneer in the legal field. She will be the 5th woman and the first mother of school-aged children to serve on the Supreme Court. In many ways, she's the ideal candidate to fill this current vacancy. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to hearing more from the nominee about her experience and her judicial philosophy. The next few days will prove invaluable as we discuss with Judge Barrett at length the proper role of a judge in our legal system. I look forward to this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then let's hear Ben Sasse, cut number 16.
Originalism, also known as textualism, is basically the old idea from 8th grade civics that judges don't get to make laws. Judges just apply them. An originalist comes to the court with a fundamental humility and modesty about what the job is that they're there to do. An originalist doesn't think of herself as a super legislator whose opinions will be read by angels from stone tablets in heaven. Judicial activism, on the other hand, is the bad idea that judges' black robes are just fake, and truthfully, they're wearing red or blue partisan jerseys under there. We should reject all such judges. And so today, when we have a nominee before us, we should be asking her questions that are not about trying to predetermine how certain cases will be judged. And a final term that we should be clear about, I mentioned earlier, but I think it's worth underscoring, is we should underscore what is court packing. Court packing is the idea that we should blow up our shared civics, that we should end the deliberative structure of the Senate by making it just another majoritarian body for the purposes of packing the Supreme Court. Court packing would depend on the destruction of the full debate here in the Senate, and it is a partisan suicide bombing that would end the deliberative structure of the United States Senate and make this job less interesting for all 100 of us. Not for 47 or 53, because it's hard to get to a supermajority that tries to protect the American people from 51, 49, 49, 51 swings all the time. What blowing up the filibuster would ultimately do is try to turn the Supreme Court into the ultimate super legislature. Court packing is not judicial reform, as some of you who wrote the memo over the weekend got a lot of media to bite on. Court packing is destroying the system we have now. It is not reforming the system we have now. And anybody who uses that the language that implies filling legitimate vacancies is actually just another form of court packing that's playing the American people for fools. And the American people actually want a Washington, D.C. that depoliticizes more decisions, not politicizes more decisions. So, Judge, I'm glad that you're before us. I'm looking forward to hearing your opening statement later today, and I look forward to the questioning you have to endure over the next 2 or 3 days, even though you probably look forward to it a little bit less.
Senator Sasse was great yesterday. They all were on the Republican side. I will be talking to 5 Republican senators, 3 of them members of the Judiciary Committee, in the next 2 hours, so before the hearing reconvenes. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere except the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Alliance Defending Freedom.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people. But there were a whole lot of people who stayed in the neighborhood for a while, and then they realized a lot of their sons and daughters were being picked on and bullied by a lot of these black kids living in the neighborhood. There was even black flight as well. And Michelle Obama does not mention that. It's really curious, isn't it? She said when she was complaining about white flight, she said, quote, and I'm quoting her, "Y'all still running," close quote. Again, fascinating how people like Oprah Winfrey can just insult white people, call them bigots, and then they still say that she's respectable and we just love them, we just love her, and y'all still running. Really?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And politically speaking, you got a Democrat candidate who's got a plan to pack the Supreme Court with 4 liberal justices because they can't accept the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is going to lead to a 6-3 conservative majority. And they don't know what to do about it. So all they can do is say, well, we'll change the rules. We got to win. And then we're going to pack the court. Biden doubled down yesterday on refusing to answer the question.
They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question to y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election begun. But 4 million or so people have already voted.
Think about that. A guy who's running for president doesn't want to tell you what he's going to do because he's afraid the media is going to write about it. The media is going to report on it. And the media just says, okay, makes sense to me. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, the president, all right, not going to have a virtual debate next week because he's not going to sit in front of a computer. So instead of virtually debating Joe Biden, he's going to hold a campaign rally. And people are going to lose their minds.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
A day of celebration and jubilation has turned into a news cycle of condemnation and of a media circus unlike anything I've seen in recent memory. At times, I believe that the laws of nature and just basic Newtonian physics don't apply to the members of the activist media. So the president was discharged from the hospital, flies back on Marine One, comes back to the White House triumphantly, should be a symbol of conquering and of victory, should be a moment that should be kind of just a post-political moment. But instead of just trying to take a couple hours off and a couple days off, the activist media leans in more than ever before to try and attack the president for not properly wearing his mask or not being completely forthright with everything around the Chinese coronavirus. In fact, some members of the media, Mika Brzezinski, she suggested manslaughter. Let's go to cut 7.
But I'm just wondering, he's pushing all of this against the advice of the professionals in his government, against the advice of scientists. At some point, isn't this manslaughter? I mean, if you purposefully put people in a position where you send a deadly virus their way.
Purposefully send a deadly virus their way. CNN also had a very aggressive take on it after the president got back to the White House being discharged from the hospital. Walter Reed, President Trump was under attack by CNN reporters trying to shame him for taking off his mask at home, getting good care, and giving hope to the nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And let me ask you the obvious question. Maybe I'm naive. Why would any party wish to pack the Supreme Court? What would their objective be, Andy?
Well, obviously, it's the same objective that FDR had when he was slapped down by his own party trying to do it back in the New Deal days, and that is in order to convert the tribunal from its last vestige as a judicial institution into a super legislature that basically imposes the political will of the party that packed it. So obviously it's completely political, and it would really destroy our system, Seb, because the framers constructed a system of sort of competitive institutions. So our liberty depends on no one actor getting an accumulation of too much power.
Right.
And part of that is making the Supreme Court a judicial, apolitical institution. That's why it's insulated from the electoral process. If you turn it into a political institution and it's just a proxy of Congress, that throws the whole system at a whack, and you have nothing left to protect minority rights, which I would think would be of interest not only to people on the right but to people on the left, because, two can play this game and it never has a happy end.
Yeah, checks and balances would be over. Follow him right now, Andrew C. McCarthy on Twitter.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I want to go back to Pence. I was really genuinely stunned and impressed at his self-control. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you did not get the impression, which the media sometimes wants to give you, is that he's dull, that he's a dud. You could see the fire within. I think many people saw him as incredibly presidential and thought, my goodness, you could think what you want of Trump, but he picked this guy to replace him if something goes wrong. That's a pretty good pick.
When Trump or Biden are sworn in January of 2021, they will be the oldest president coming into office for a term. 74 or 78 will beat the all-time age limits. And so I think, particularly because of the discussion about whether or not Biden would even complete a term, I think the focus on Kamala Harris being
Morning, Glory America. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway, joined by Senator Marsha Blackburn of the great state of Tennessee. Good morning, Senator. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be back with you. And what an interesting week we have. My goodness.
Yeah, I liked the start of yesterday. I thought it was a very good explication of everyone's opening position. Senator, you were attacked online yesterday. I'm not sure you saw this. People were conflating your support for the president's ban early in his tenure on immigration from Muslim-majority countries that were specified. They conflated that with a religious test for office. Those are very different things. I just want to give you a chance to respond. Have you ever supported a religious test for office that would ban Muslim Americans from serving?
Oh, not at all. As a matter of fact, I have been very vocal in supporting the Uyghurs, which are the Muslim minority in China. And I have never supported a Muslim ban, and that is just ridiculous. I didn't see what you were referencing, but I have to tell you, I find that just really so interesting. Everybody knows that a religious test is something that is unconstitutional. It's also illegal, and they know that that is inappropriate. So you're going to see a good bit of this type back and forth and accusations, because I thought it was so interesting yesterday. The Democrats continued to project their fears and concerns onto the American people and say, oh, Judge Barrett, they fear you. They're scared of you. They are terrified by this nomination. And I haven't talked to anyone who is terrified of this except the Democrats, who do not want to have another constitutionalist, textualist, originalist on the Supreme Court. And I thought it was very appropriate that Judge Barrett mentioned her mentor, Justice Scalia. She also had a mentor who had hired her to be a professor who spoke in her favor. I think the Democrats are very concerned that the ABA rated her well qualified. And I know it's going to be difficult for them to block her.
That's why, Senator, I think online, and you're very busy, I doubt you see this, but I maintain vigilance about Article 6 because I wrote a book about it when Mitt Romney was running for president, and I just am so offended by religious tests. So there was an attempt to conflate many issues, to accuse Republicans of having a religious test with support for President Trump's campaign promise to ban immigrants from Muslim countries. And I just pointed out, conflating these issues, whatever you think of the former and the latter, they have nothing to do with each other. It's a completely either ridiculously stupid or exceptionally cynical thing to conflate completely different issue sets. Whatever you think about both of them, they've got nothing to do with each other.
Well, you're exactly right. They have nothing to do with one another. And this is how the Democrats are going to parse and pick little things that they think they can conflate. And then they're going to use that to diminish Amy Coney Barrett. But this is what the left does regularly to conservatives, and it is especially what they do with conservative women, because they have made an Olympic-sized sport of ridiculing, mocking, and diminishing conservative women. It is like they're obsessed with it.
Now, I do want to point out that is why you and Joni Ernst being on this committee is so crucial to the Republicans, so you can stand up and absolutely defend the perspective of conservatives from the perspective of also being a woman. I thought Judge Barrett's opening comments were extraordinarily effective, and I believe the Democrats are now afraid because this morning, Ruth Marcus, who's a good friend of mine. She is an editorial page deputy editor at the Washington Post. She's a liberal. I mean, she's very liberal. Ruth today wrote a column saying Amy Coney Barrett is not going to strike down the ACA. There are a lot of reasons to be afraid of her, but that's not one of them. I just thought it was silly that the Democrats invested all of their time yesterday in a story and in an argument that's very, one, complicated, and two, not true.
Well, you would have thought yesterday that, yes, they were fear-mongering. They were trying to create a panic because they know that she is going to be confirmed to the court. And secondly, they were trying to make it all about the ACA. Every single one of them, as I reviewed my notes yesterday, every single one of them went to the ACA in health care. She's not going to strike the ACA. She is not going to strike Roe v. Wade. I mean, all of these things that they're creating, this rushed fake panic about, are just not going to happen. And here is the thing, though, Hugh. It is not the ACA they're worried about. They're worried about having a court that is actually a constitutionalist court.
I agree with this,
court
Senator.
May block them from doing, taking away private health insurance from 178 million Americans. It may block them from implementing the Green New Deal and destroying your private property rights. It might block them from D.C. statehood, from abolishing the Electoral College. The list goes on because what the Democrats want are activist judges who are going to create a quote-unquote super legislature so that they can say, well, the court said, so thereby we have to do X. And they can't win it at the ballot box. They can't win it at the legislative battle. So what are they going to do? Let's politicize the court and fill it with activists. And they do not want a constitutionalist court that calls balls and strikes.
Now, I believe Chairman Graham did a very good job with the hearing yesterday, and I think it helps that the room is not packed with crazy demonstrators who sneak in on fake tickets they've obtained under false pretenses. But I'm curious if you expect this to be done by Wednesday evening and a vote on Thursday, or will it take until next week, Senator Blackburn?
I think you're going to see us vote to hold her over on Thursday, and then on the 22nd we will vote to send her to the floor, and on the 25th or 26th we will hold her confirmation vote.
Do they have any ability to delay or obstruct the vote to hold her over, or to send the nomination to the floor?
They don't have, I think, anything that they can do that is going to severely delay it. Quite frankly, I do believe that some of their trial balloons that they sent up about having the adoptions of the children investigated, having the FBI investigate some of her writings, I think that was not met well. Obviously, it didn't focus group very well for them, and so they realized that they ought not to go there.
Now, I am cheered, Senator. I really am glad that yesterday I did not hear one Democrat. I want to be clear and give them credit. They have retreated from the religious test that they used during her confirmation hearing for judge. Senators Feinstein and Durbin and Hirono and Harris stayed away from the religious test that they have employed with her and other judges. I think they have also focus grouped that makes Americans really angry. Do you agree with my assessment that is not going to happen?
Hugh, I think you're exactly right on that. They have realized if they go there, the chairman can say Article 6 and read it back to them and can call them down and can strike that because they know they cannot go there. That is unconstitutional. It is illegal. They cannot do that. And Chairman Graham would be fully within his right to rule them out of order on such.
I hope it doesn't come to that, but I hope he does if they do. Senator Blackburn, always good to talk to you. Good luck today. It must be something of an ordeal to sit that long. I appreciate your time.
You're right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't forget, America, get out and vote. Job Creators Network is sponsoring KeepAmericaAmerica.com. America remains American if every American who is eligible votes. Every American over the age of 18 who is eligible, no matter what your background, no matter how old you are, no matter which state you're in, KeepAmericaAmerica.com helps you find where to vote, gets you to commit to help other people to vote. It's one of the largest get out the vote campaigns ever, the only one that's ever successfully approached every conservative talk show host out there and gotten them to participate. KeepAmericaAmerica.com sponsors some segments on this show, but what they're really sponsoring is civic participation. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. So proud to have a get out the vote effort on this radio show. Please go there, do a little, do a lot, but do something to get the vote out. KeepAmericaAmerica.com.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Job Creators Network.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I want to go back to Pence. I was really genuinely stunned and impressed at his self-control. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you did not get the impression, which the media sometimes wants to give you, is that he's dull, that he's a dud. You could see the fire within. I think many people saw him as incredibly presidential and thought, my goodness, you could think what you want of Trump, but he picked this guy to replace him if something goes wrong. That's a pretty good pick.
When Trump or Biden are sworn in January of 2021, they will be the oldest president coming into office for a term. 74 or 78 will beat the all-time age limits. And so I think, particularly because of the discussion about whether or not Biden would even complete a term, I think the focus on Kamala Harris being a potential president really put that debate under that kind of spotlight. Would these people make a good president if the top guy goes down? And with Biden's health issues and certainly with the president catching COVID, I just think we've seen the humanity and kind of the frailty of the people that can be in that office pretty upfront. So that is a relevant question at this point in time. And there's no question about last night that Mike Pence had command not only of what he needed to say and what he wanted to get across, but the kind of have the demeanor to be able to do so in a way that would be appealing and understandable by the majority, majority of Americans.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
My guest is Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, people are clueless about the real meaning of Citizens United. Can you explain to people what that ruling really means, and why is the left so afraid of it?
Yeah, I can. It's a hugely important question. The chapter on free speech in the book talks all about Citizens United. Mm-hmm. Most people have heard of it, but they don't know what it is, and they know Democrats hate it.
Right.
What it was about is our right to criticize politicians. And in this instance, a nonprofit group in D.C. called Citizens United made a movie critical of Hillary Clinton. And the Obama Justice Department took the position that the government could fine them, could punish them for daring to criticize Hillary Clinton. The case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The most chilling moment was an oral argument when Justice Sam Alito asked the Obama Justice Department, under your theory of the case, could the federal government ban books? And the Obama Justice Department said, yes, we can ban books. Never mind what the First Amendment says, but we can. They criticize a politician. Now, thankfully, the Supreme Court rejected that by a vote of 5-4. There were 4 justices willing to say the government can censor movies, can censor books, can ban books if they criticize politicians. We're 1 vote away from our free speech rights being taken away.
Senator, who wins on November 3?
I genuinely don't know. The hard left's going to show up in massive numbers. If everybody else shows up, if people turn out, we could have a great election. The president could get reelected, and we could retake the House and hold the Senate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Michael Medved at michaelmedved.com for Town Hall. The appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court counts as a masterstroke and easily one of the best decisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In an election season when liberals and media try to characterize conservatives as old, angry, bigoted, extreme, and lacking in empathy, Judge Barrett displays the opposite characteristics. At age 48, she's youthful, a genial consensus builder, and mother of 7, including a special needs child and 2 adopted kids from Haiti. On a court dominated for decades by Yale and Harvard graduates, she's a breath of Midwestern fresh air.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Inside the Beltway. I just fulfilled the duty I was charged by the fetching Mrs. Hewitt yesterday not to let her forget that Prime Day had begun. Now, I own Amazon. We own Amazon, so I'm very happy to remind her to do her shopping at Amazon.com. But this market report brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Amazon and the tech stocks are just ripping the market up. And this is happening as the markets go up, 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 up. It's happening when interest rates remain down, 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 down. AndrewandTodd.com are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They lend money to buy homes or refinance homes. If you're a veteran, the interest rate will be zero. It will be nothing down. It'll be a very low interest rate, but nothing down, 100% financing. If you're a senior citizen, they will walk you through the long but not particularly complex process of getting a reverse mortgage. It might take a month. AndrewandTodd.com are wonderful, trustworthy guys. I was in a Bible study for years with Andrew. I've known Todd for 8 years now. AndrewandTodd.com. You can call them at 888-888-1172. Yesterday, the S&P went up 57 points. The Dow went up 250 points, but remarkably, the NASDAQ went up 296 points. That was a 2.5% rise yesterday. As the tech rally, some people are worried that it's SoftBank buying options. Other people think it's a bubble. I don't know what it is. I just know it's strong, vibrant, and Donald Trump's going to be talking about the stock market, pricing in the V-shaped recovery. We'll get GDP numbers here pretty soon on Q3, and I hope they're good. I think they will power Donald Trump's reelection, and I believe the unemployment rate will continue to fall dramatically, especially when restaurants and the travel business begins to reopen. But the market is a forward-looking thing. It doesn't look backwards, it looks forward. And now it's looking at a V-shaped recovery, and I think it's doing extraordinarily well. It will. The Fed has promised to keep interest rates low for a long time, and I don't disbelieve them. But I also find it impossible to believe that the 30-year fixed mortgage is going to stay as low as it is. So please head over now to AndrewandTodd.com and make sure that you get an interest rate that you'll never see again. And if you have a son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter, become a non-occupying co-borrower with them and help them get into a house now with these rates. You will have seen, if you follow me on Twitter, that I've made an appeal to people to contribute to Alliance Defending Freedom. They are also over at the top of my webpage. This is the time of year when I'm annually out there asking people to please support the greatest civil rights organization in America in the courts today. That used to be the ACLU, now is the ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. That's because they support free speech and religious liberty for everyone. For people who don't believe anything, they would defend Richard Dawkins' right to speak at any state college. They would stop the government from shutting him down, and they would support 20 bishops speaking at 20 different state colleges. They believe in free speech and religious liberty, and that's why I annually lecture the Blackstone Fellows, 1Ls and 2Ls that get together, that the ADF trains and then helps find jobs and then brings back to talk about their experience. Alliance Defending Freedom's Blackstone Fellows have been running for 20 years. Amy Coney Barrett lectured them a few times. I've lectured them a lot. I expect they will be attacked today at some point. They are not anti-LGBTQ. Please do not believe that lie. They are pro-freedom. They are pro-religious liberty. They protect the rights of institutions that are driven by faith to hire in accordance with the ministerial exception, which is well trod down in the law. and they're going to get attacked and they're going to need help. So I want you please to go over to Alliance Defending Freedom's banner at hughhewitt.com. Go to the top of my page and you will find it there. Or if you're old-fashioned, you can call them. 866-359-9644. Give them $100, give them $1,000, give them $20 million. It would be a great investment for anyone who believes in free speech and religious liberty to give to Alliance Defending Freedom. 866-359-9644. The widow's mite counts. All right, so it's $10 all you can afford. That's good. $100 is great. More is great. 866-359-9644. I'm coming back, America, with another senator, I believe, or at least some tape of a senator when we return to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to hughhewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
This is Michael Medved at michaelmedved.com for Town Hall. The appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court counts as a masterstroke and easily one of the best decisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In an election season when liberals and media try to characterize conservatives as old, angry, bigoted, extreme, and lacking in empathy, Judge Barrett displays the opposite characteristics. At age 48, she's youthful, a genial consensus builder, and mother of 7, including a special needs child and 2 adopted kids from Haiti. On a court dominated for decades by Yale and Harvard graduates, she's a breath of Midwestern fresh air, beloved by her students at Notre Dame. Most importantly, she'll give new life to the originalist thinking of her mentor, Justice Antonin Scalia, in stressing what the Constitution actually says, not what Judge wanted to say. As Americans have been losing faith in public institutions, Judge Barrett can help to restore their confidence. I'm Michael Medved.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. If you're on a college campus today or have a child on campus, there's a solid chance you'll hear this. All white people are racist. You might hear this too. America is founded on white supremacy. These 2 sentences are not mere overheated emotion. They express an ideology called critical race theory, or CRT, which argues that race is a social construct made by white people. Just as race was once used to enslave and terrorize, so it is used today to keep America unequal, unfair, and hostile to minorities. The Trump administration just took symbolic and courageous action against CRT. It issued a memo to federal agencies calling for the end of the government's CRT racial sensitivity trainings, terming them divisive anti-American propaganda. Does America have real issues in its past? Yes. Have we made real progress that we must guard carefully? Also yes. The White House has led well here. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I have almost nothing to say about last night's debate. It was one of those things where I thought Mike Pence is masterful. The idea that he was able to contain himself and to respond in this measured way, no matter what Kamala Harris said. I thought that is seriously amazing to me in these passionate times in which we live. And I was in awe of his self-control. So that's all I'll say. What do you say?
Well, you know, he is a born-again Christian. He carries his faith very seriously, and I think that he represents that faith very well when he does things in public, and I thought last night was just an example of that. But there were a couple of things I was looking for, and I wanted to see if they were going to happen, and it took about 15 seconds into the debate for them to come true. One was I wanted to see how long it would take for the coronation to begin, and about 20 minutes into the debate, you already had CNN and MSNBC saying that Kamala was killing it and she was masterfully in control of the evening and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to see was, would she be the one of the two that would push the envelope with the emotional side of maybe overreaction? And it only took a few of those side-by-side shots where she's glaring at Pence while he's giving his response to whatever the question was. I mean, it wasn't like a gentle but placed smile. It was like, not only did
female
Pence,
Al Gore of color.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I'm not going to declare victory yet, Dennis, but I hope, because this is like a zombie, this Fine People hoax. It just keeps coming back from the dead. Maybe it's at least on life support now because of the big assist.
Well,
from Vice President Pence.
The lie upon the lie is Joe Biden had no interest in running for president. It was Charlottesville that convinced him he needed to run. This man has been running for president for 47 years.
Right.
He never heard of Charlottesville, and he decided to run for president. I mean, the ease with which the left lies is breathtaking.
Right. Speaking of that, last night in the debate, it was interesting. The very first lie that Kamala told, it was I think about a minute in, literally, into the debate, and she actually used the word hoax, right? That was a lie, where she said that Donald Trump called the virus a hoax. And, of course, he never did. Even the Washington Post, by the way, conceived this. Even their fact checker said.
Welcome back, America. 33 minutes after the hour. The Morning Consult Post, which was just cited by Josh Kraushaar, has President Trump up in South Carolina 54-42, and Lindsey Graham ahead by 6 points, which I think Lindsey will win if he can even match half of the spending of his opponent. I mean, the left wing is just flooding his opponent in the hopes of buying a Senate seat in South Carolina. So his appeal to go to lindseygraham.com and contribute is legit. He just needs to spend about half of what the Democrats spend, and he'll win South Carolina, deep red state. But they are trying to buy a seat down there. I've listed all of the Senate races at the top of HughHewitt.com. There are 6 of them where your contributions to Republicans would be greatly appreciated. Let me play for you, if I can, Don Lemon. Remember I had Brian Stelter on last week, and Brian was saying, oh, Don Lemon's not, he's a newsman. Cut number 14, his throw last night from Chris Cuomo.
I'm not surprised by any of it. I'm just sick of it. But listen, why are you like pushing him about court packing? Because you're doing the Republicans' work.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
it's a legitimate question.
It's not. Look, it's not a legitimate question in that during the debate, the vice president raised a question. The moderator didn't raise a question. Plus, it is this is something that this is a hypothetical. Whether or not Joe Biden has said twice, at least on tape that I've seen, how he feels about court packing. And I think it's a distraction from the Republicans.
And why doesn't he answer it?
Because he doesn't have to, just because he doesn't have to answer it.
Well, he doesn't have to answer it, but you don't think it's going to affect people's trust quotient?
No, because people aren't worried about that. People are concerned about, if you want to know specifically about the court, people are concerned about the Republicans switching and being hypocrites on saying this is an election year. That's what people are concerned about.
Don Lemon is a hard left. I mean, he's Rachel Maddow for CNN. And that's okay. Let's just not call him a newsman or a straight reporter. He's not an objective, straight reporter giving the news that I just go down the line. You get nothing, no curveballs unless I tell you it's a curveball, and you just get fastballs. Now, here's a fastball. Don Lemon said he had heard Joe Biden on the subject twice. I've heard Joe Biden on the subject twice, too. In 1983 and 1987 on court packing. Here's Joe Biden on court packing, cut number 3.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question for an entire decade, the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The president had the right to do that. He was totally within his power, and his objective was seen clearly.
And it was defeated 70-20 in a Congress that had 73 Democrats aligned with FDR in the Senate. 73 out of 96. Here's Joe Biden in 1987, cut number 4.
He's gone to the Senate and the House repeatedly to ask for legislation, has been repeatedly rejected. But while President Roosevelt's social programs had the support of the Congress, President Reagan's programs did not. And while President Reagan has used his nominations to shift the balance of the court, in Roosevelt's case, the court shifted on its own. Before the court-packing bill reached the Senate floor, before Justice Mandever's timely resignation, Justice Robert Owens had already made his welcome switch in time to save 9. Giving Roosevelt a 5-4 majority he sought. But in May of 1937, the outcome of the Senate was anything but certain. The Judiciary Committee was controlled by Democrats, all loyal New Dealers. And although they supported Roosevelt's political ends, they refused to allow him to pursue them through judicial means. In their minds, the integrity of the court meant more than the agenda of the president. And on June 14th, they issued a report condemning the court-packing plan. The president's legislation, they concluded, demonstrated, quote, the futility and absurdity of the devious. It was an effort to punish the justices for their opinions, quote, that was an invasion of judicial powers such as has never been attempted before in this country. But the committee report went further still. The executive attempts to dominate the judiciary led to an autocratic dominance, they said, the very thing against which the American colonies revolted and to prevent which the Constitution was in its very particulars framed. The report concluded with a final thundering sentence before the day was out that would be heard round the world. Quote, it is a measure which should be so emphatically rejected that its parallel will never again be presented to a free representative of a free people in America. My case today about the role of the court is rooted in history, precedent, and I would argue common sense. I've argued that the framers entrusted the Senate with a responsibility of advice and consent to protect the independence of the judiciary.
That is, I like Joe Biden in 1987. He understood that court packing, he knew what it is, it's adding seats to the court, and he understood it was a fundamental threat to the American Republic. And Joe Biden ought to denounce it now, as should every Democrat, no matter what their hard left wing wants. It is a threat to the Republic. Here's Senator Crapo yesterday, cut 19.
I have some prepared remarks here, which I will give. But having sat through the speeches that I've heard already and listened to the attacks that have been made, both on Republican members of the committee and on you, I think it's important to just set the record straight on a few items before I then talk about why we are here, and that is you and your qualifications to serve as a justice. So what were the attacks? I'd say the first one is that we're rushing too fast and that we are violating the rules and norms and precedents of the Senate and speeding into these proceedings. What are the facts? I had my staff check while we were sitting here. This hearing is 16 days after Judge Barrett's announced nomination. More than half of all Supreme Court hearings have been held within 16 days of the announcement of the nominee. This case is no different. A couple of examples. Justice Stevens, 10 days. Justice Rehnquist, 13 days. Justice Powell, 13 days. Justice Blackmun, 15 days. Justice Berger, 13 days. These proceedings are following right along in the same kind of process that has historically been the process of the Senate. So then the argument is made that, well, this is an election year, and the Republicans said back in 2016 that in an election year they wouldn't move forward with then President Obama's nomination. What are the facts? A vacancy has arisen in a presidential election year 29 times. Every single one, and this is important to note, every single one of those 29 times, whoever was the sitting president made a nomination to replace the vacancy, to fill the vacancy. Every one of those 29 times. 19 of those 29 times, the parties of the president and the Senate majority were the same. And 17 of those 19 nominees were confirmed. By contrast, of the 10 times in which the Senate was controlled by the party opposite to the president, only one time did the Senate that was not of the party of the president proceed to fill that vacancy. In fact, vacancies under a divided government, meaning a Senate and a presidency from different parties, have not been filled for over 130 years, going back to 1888. So much like when the Senate exercised its constitutional right, fully consistent with precedent in 2016, not to fill the vacancy when there was divided government, the Senate is today exercising its duty to move forward with processing this nomination, just like the vast majority of Senates in the past have done every time this has happened. And it's important to note that. Any claim that this process is unusual or that it violates the clear precedent of the Senate is simply false. So then, back to the attacks on the members of this committee on the Republican side, and frankly against the president. It says that we're trying to engage in court packing. Now, that's a novel one because it's actually the Senate following standard procedure with regard to a vacancy that is now being accused of being court packing, when my colleagues on the other side are actually proposing court packing. That is, to statutorily and with the signature of a president, change the law so that they can add more members to the court. FDR tried this, and his effort was rejected. That effort should be rejected now, but let's be clear about it. This is not court packing. That, threatening to pass a law and change the court, is court packing. So then what were the arguments that were actually leveled against Judge Barrett? Well, the standard arguments. She is going to overturn all protections for women. She is going to change all of the laws in the country that protect people's health care. And everyone in this country who has a pre-existing condition or has any kind of a worry about getting support needs to worry that she's going to be an activist judge and a justice and go in there and change the law. She's not, and we all know that. This is simply the tired, worn-out argument that is constantly made every time a Republican president nominates a candidate for the bench for the Supreme Court of the United States. And it's never been true, and it will not be true with Judge Barrett. So then the attack is, well, the Republicans don't care about people's health. They won't even try to get COVID relief out. And we're here in a hearing in the Judiciary Committee when we ought to be passing COVID relief legislation. And I've heard several of my colleagues basically say the Republicans are refusing to work on helping to address the COVID crisis. This coming from colleagues who just a month or so ago voted unanimously to filibuster a $500 to $600 billion COVID relief package in the Senate. A COVID relief package, I asked my staff to get me a quick summary of it, that put, as I indicated, somewhere between $500 and $600 billion into more small business loans, unemployment insurance, agriculture and farming assistance, postal service assistance, education assistance, both at the higher education levels and at K through 12, healthcare assistance for pandemic preparation, for strategic stockpiles, for testing, for contact tracing, billions for vaccine and therapeutic and diagnostic development, and the list goes on. We were stopped from proceeding with this legislation by a filibuster of those who now accuse us of not wanting to try to do something. We stand ready if you'll simply let us go to the legislation and
well
pass
said,
it.
Senator Crapo. Because I heard that repeated. I listen to these things. I heard them repeatedly say that the Republicans hadn't done anything on COVID. I'm sometimes my jaw drops when I hear the Democrats say something like that when they have blocked COVID relief legislation. Oh, well, speaking of relief, ReliefFactor.com sponsors the show. I'm in the ReliefFactor.com studio, and I want you to try it. $19.95 is a 3-week starter pack. Why? Because I take it every morning. I take it because Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega are recommended to me by my doctor as being very, very important for a balanced diet. And why? It supports the temporary relief of minor aches and pains. Keeps your body well fed on the only supplement I take, Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. $19.95 gets you started. Go to ReliefFactor.com. Come right back. Senator Ben Sasse is next on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I'm not going to declare victory yet, Dennis, but I hope, because this is like a zombie, this Find People hoax. It just keeps coming back from the dead. Maybe it's at least on life support now because of the big assist.
Well, the lie upon the lie is Joe Biden had no interest in running for president. It was Charlottesville that convinced him he needed to run. This man has been running for president for 47 years.
Right.
He never heard of Charlottesville, and he decided to run for president. I mean, the ease with which the left lies is breathtaking.
Right. Speaking of that, last night in the debate, it was interesting. The very first lie that Kamala told, it was I think about a minute in, literally, into the debate, and she actually used the word hoax, right? That was a lie, where she said that Donald Trump called the virus a hoax. And, of course, he never did. Even the Washington Post, by the way, conceived this. Even their fact checker said no. Of course, he was talking about the Democratic reaction to his coronavirus handling. He said that was a hoax. He never called the virus itself a hoax. And so she used the word hoax to lie, as I said, mere seconds into the campaign, into the debate. She lied quite a bit last night. She lied about her wish to ban fracking. We have this on videotape. I mean, these people are pretty bold in their lies. But again, the most pernicious lie, the most malicious for our society, has been the Find People hoax, and we have to continue to spread the truth.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Because when John McCain was running in 2008, he's on The View. And one of the ladies says to him, what happens if Roe v. Wade is overturned? And I'm at home yelling, it goes to the states, it goes to the states. And you live in a New York state, which is very liberal, nothing's going to change. Instead, Senator McCain just went, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen, but what kind of answer is that?
The wrong answer. I mean, it's... You're exactly right, and what I describe in the book One Vote Away in the chapter on life is for 200 years of our nation's history, laws on abortion were made at the state level, and different states had different laws. And if you wanted to change the laws on abortion, you did the same thing you did if you wanted to change any other laws, which is you tried to convince your fellow citizens your ideas were right and their ideas were wrong. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, you silly voters, you don't get to decide this anymore. We're taking this out of your hand. The American people have no ability to resolve this question. And I think that decision, more than anything, politicized the court. It's the reason we have these ugly circus confirmations now. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they support unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion with no parental notification, no parental consent, and taxpayer funding for it all. Do you know, Larry, that only 9...
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Day 2 of the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings on The nomination of Judge Barrett begin today. Senator Ben Sasse will be there. Good morning, Senator. Welcome back to the show. You did a great job yesterday. I appreciated your civics lesson.
Oh, thanks. You were the one.
Well, I did. I enjoyed it. I was listening to it. I just thought the other side, the fear-mongering on the ACA, most legal scholars think that's a silly argument. There's no way they're going to say it's not severable. But nevertheless, they argue that. I'm astonished sometimes, Senator, at what goes on the other side.
Yeah, I'm no legal scholar, but my reading of it is also that severability is a really important topic, and I don't think I want to ask Judge Barrett about that today, because then it will be confused by the media as us saying we shouldn't be doing outcomes, and then it's like we're doing outcomes. But it does feel like there are a whole bunch of people who just want to use this hearing as a get-out-the-vote strategy, and whether or not it's connected to reality for what might happen in the court after the election doesn't concern them very much. And it's kind of a gross distortion of what we should be doing at the civics level of making sure the American public understands what a confirmation hearing is, because what's a judge's and especially a justice's job.
I would also you gave a lesson as a PhD from Yale, a historian. American
I don't ever
people
want to admit any of that.
Yeah, I know. But as a historian, the great convulsion of the Civil War, which was, as Lincoln's second inaugural said, the necessary justice done to the United States, resulted in two things: the Judiciary Act of 1869, but before that, the 14th Amendment of 1868. Those two things are cornerstones of the rule of law. And when people talk about court packing, and they won't even admit what it means, they are undermining the fundamental rule of law. I get very exercised about this, Senator. They should not, if they're going to try and pack the court, they ought to at least be upfront about the danger that it poses.
Yeah, I mean, the structure we have, these three branches that check and balance one another, it's fragile. And if you end the deliberative structure of the United States Senate and you do that for the purposes of packing the court, you're really fundamentally remaking the American system. And we got lots of stuff that's broken in our public life and public square and civil discourse and public trust right now. And it's an incredibly dangerous thing to do. I think it's a terrible idea, but at least be upfront with the American people. And instead, they've decided to come up with this dodge where they just have this Orwellian spin by saying, well, we know that in our focus grouping, court packing is a term that nobody likes, so why don't we just say the other side did it? So now they're talking about filling open vacancies as court packing. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's like the difference between taking the field and shooting the referee.
Well, but I also think that when Leader McConnell blocked all of the Democratic judges in the last 2 years, it was payback for Harry Reid breaking the filibuster. I mean, that was just the quid pro quo of the Senate, and I don't know why we can't admit that. And the Senate is a majoritarian institution when it comes to nominations now. That's Harry Reid's doing. But what I really worry about, and I'd like to have your thoughts on this, people always think I'm an alarmist when I bring up the Roman Revolution, which actually it takes 70 years for Rome to lose its Republican status because of continued assaults on the mos maiorum, the way that things were done, just continually assaulting traditional norms. We're going through that right now, and people don't understand. You can't shake the pillars without bringing down the house.
I strongly agree. I mean, when I was running in 2013-14, one of the most common topics on the trail was the Waters of the U.S. rule that was about the EPA and, trying to remake the way we regulate agriculture even when it's intrastate issues. But I'd say a close second was executive overreach. And executive overreach follows from legislative underreach. So now going back to your Roman history, if the Senate just becomes a place that seems like a nice honorific, it's a title people want, but it's not an institution that wants to actually work through the hard choices and trade-offs that have to do with public policy and power, if it just becomes a place where people grandstand because they want your job, folks here wish they could be pundits instead of actually having any influence over the legislative decision-making that's happening, then inevitably you're going to grow an administrative state. Inevitably you're going to grow an executive branch. And the public then starts to think of the presidency as this quasi-kingly power. And when you do that with majoritarian 51-49 voting, it means that all of culture has to be swallowed up by the politicization of, I got to get to 51-49 because otherwise the world's going to end. Washington, D.C. is just not supposed to be that important in people's daily lives.
Yeah, Senator, you obviously prepare. And you're right about that. But in the minute that we have left, I hate the missed opportunity. Justices come out for questions once in their life. And to use it for political grandstanding instead of the education of the American public about what judges do is, to me, tragic.
I agree. We have to have people understand what judicial activism is, why it's bad, and why putting on a black robe, cloaking yourself, is all symbiotic with not standing for election. It's symbiotic with lifetime tenure, because this is supposed to be the apolitical branch, and that shouldn't be a Republican argument. It should be something that Democrats also want to argue for, so that the political branches have the accountability to the people.
Do you think you can get questions of Judge Barrett that will illuminate that, Senator Sasse?
I mean, she won the teaching award at Notre Dame year after year after year. I mean, hopefully people would want to be asking her questions, because it turns out she's pretty good at teaching it.
Amen. Ben Sasse, thank you, Senator. Always a pleasure. Good luck today. It must be very frustrating. I like having the microphone. I couldn't sit in a Senate committee. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back, America, on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
You've got the Speaker of the House saying something that is so telling to me. I've had a number of people text and call me and say, this 25th Amendment crap that Pelosi's pulling, this stunt, it isn't for Trump, it's for Biden. And as I think about it, and I'm listening to Nancy Pelosi's announcement, which we are just about to play for you. It's coming, I'm told, but this is just moments ago. Nancy Pelosi said, this is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters, but he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. You mean like Joe Biden if he wins? You know 59% of Americans polled by Rasmussen a couple of months ago don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term, right? 59. You know, in that same poll, 49% of Democrats don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term. Is Nancy Pelosi setting up the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden so we have President Kamala Harris? You be the judge. You listen to what Nancy Pelosi said moments ago, announcing a bill on the 25th Amendment.
This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters. But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
In the summer of 2016, right near the Republican convention, out of nowhere, there was chatter that started to surface around President Donald Trump allegedly having connections to Russia. In fact, we can go back and we find television clips of Hillary Clinton campaign surrogates starting to talk about Donald Trump is bought and paid for by Russia, or there is meaningful collusion happening on behalf of the Trump campaign in Russia. And it was always very bizarre. It was always so incongruent with the entire election because there were such bigger issues happening in 2016. Go back into 2016. Russia was not at the forefront of any sort of geopolitical conversations. People were mostly focused on Hillary Clinton's campaign or Hillary Clinton's emails. We'll talk about that. But 2016 was a lot about what Donald Trump was going to do if he became president. It was a lot about the economy. It was about the Obama succession. It was about the Obama legacy. And so this conversation about Russia always felt a very, very strange and very bizarre for those of us that were in the campaign, or around the campaign, I should say. And so John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, has just declassified a series of documents that revealed that former CIA Director John Brennan briefed former President Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's purported plan to tie then candidate Donald Trump to Russia as a, quote, means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Just a few minutes ago, let's remind everybody. So there's the Hunter Biden scandal, Ukraine. Hunter Biden's primary business partner, both at Burisma, the Ukrainian company, on many other things, including the China things, is a guy named Devon Archer. And back in 2018,
Kerry was involved as well. Kerry's stepson.
That was a third partner on some of the business ventures,
like Rosemont Seneca.
Right. His name was Christopher Hines. He didn't have anything to do with Burisma.
Okay.
But he did have to do with some of the other ones. But
so tell us about this other partner.
Devon Archer was the primary driving force on almost all of Hunter's big deals: the China deals, the Burisma deal, the Kazakhstan deal, the Russia deal about the Russian oligarch, the one that Joe Biden claimed wasn't true, but it is.
You mean the $3.5 million?
And you know what it is? It's more than $3.5 million. According to the documents the FBI obtained in Devon Archer's criminal case, which we're going to talk about, it was $200 million that came in for Yelena Baturina.
Well, she's a billionaire.
She is, so $200 million is, a little bit of money.
Right.
Yeah. And the FBI's known that. So it's that case. Devon Archer in 2018 was convicted of fraud in a case up in New York. And then mysteriously, a few months after the jury verdict, the judge set aside only his verdict. The other men in the case were continued to be viewed as
only
guilty.
Devon Archer.
Only Devon Archer was excised from the case and freed, and the guilty verdict overturned. The Justice Department appealed. The wheels of justice turned slow. But at 4 o'clock, just a few minutes ago, the Second District Court of Appeals in New York reinstated the guilty plea, saying the judge had no right to come up with their own theory of the case and throw out Devon Archer's conviction.
So the prosecution said the judge can't just throw out a guilty verdict.
Exactly. And more importantly, because I think this has some application to the Mike Flynn case.
Yes.
The judge was scolded for developing their own theory of the case.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
But last night, I'm going into it. I've known Mike Pence for 30 years. I knew he was going to be the polished gentleman that he always is, a consistent Christian, very capable of keeping his testimony intact when he's in front of people. And I was waiting to see if the Kamala from about the third or fourth primary debate, remember where she was just like hacking at Joe Biden and she was just out of control. We didn't get that Kamala Harris last night, but the one we did get was someone who still obviously gets very angry about things and can't keep that from expressing it on her face. And all you had to do was read some of the Twitter activity during the debate. Megyn Kelly calling her out on, she's like, even if you feel it, don't wear it on your face, lady.
I try to filter out my own biases. I tried to be aware of my own biases. And I'm thinking, do I not like her just because I don't like her positions? Do I not like her? But there does seem to be something cloying and annoying about the way she comes across.
On the optics alone, and all you have to do is just look at the average number of polls that are being done by individual news stations that carried the debate and so forth last night, all across Twitter. I have not seen a poll come in from an independent journalism outlet or think tank group that has not said that Pence won in a landslide last night. And I don't think that that was purely on policy, because I think a lot of those places don't agree with Mike Pence on policy. I think that is a reflection of how she comes across personality-wise.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
After all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate.
Morning glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Big day at the confirmation hearings of Judge Barrett, not on the Judiciary Committee, but a key influencer in the United States Senate is my guest, Senator Rob Portman from our great state of Ohio. Senator Portman, welcome. It's always good to talk to a fellow Buckeye.
Hugh, thanks for having me on.
I want to begin. I'm going to get the court packing very quickly. Vice President Biden, your former colleague, was in Ohio yesterday, Toledo and Cincinnati. You won Ohio by 21 points 4 years ago. The president won by 8.5, so you significantly outpaced him. What's your advice to your colleagues running on the ticket with President Trump? Because some of them are struggling, some of them are way ahead, but they all need advice.
Well, look, I don't think I can give much advice because every state is different. I would just say two things. One, I think it's important for all of our colleagues to talk about the importance of holding the Senate. I mean, this is unbelievable. If we lose the White House and lose the Senate and lose the House, the kinds of things that could happen to our country, the tax increases, the regulatory overreach, the lack of support for our military, and then some of the structural changes they're talking about, packing the court. I mean, it's unbelievable that after 150 years we would think about that. And then bringing on additional states where they're likely to be Democratic senators. And these are structural changes as well. So I think that's one thing to talk about is the fact that this is about the Senate majority because there are about 11 seats in play as I see it, Hugh, and they all could be the majority maker seat. And then second is just being an independent voice for your state. I mean, as you know, I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm a proud Republican, but Ohio's got particular issues, as does every state, and you got to stand up for that. I did a lot on my election about the opioid crisis because I had done a lot in the Senate on that issue to try to push back against it and protecting the Great Lakes, which you know, being a northern Ohioan is incredibly important for our state, and had taken the lead there and talked about that. So I think it's having issues that are important to your specific state, and so look, that's the only advice that I would give them.
Now, I have one particular question about whether or not it makes sense to argue about the influence of seniority. I look at Susan Collins as a model senator like you. I think she may be the most influential senator in the upper chamber, and it's a close race. I think she'll win in Maine. But do you think voters understand how important seniority is in the Senate, how very, very important Susan Collins is to protecting Maine and Maine's interests?
I'm not sure, but it's a very good point. And I think what Susan can also talk about is just her effectiveness. You know, she is viewed as the most bipartisan senator by an outside survey group. She is someone who has accomplished a lot. She can look back on her career and just talk about her health care bill she's passed, what she's done for small businesses as chair of that committee, and what she's done for our veterans. So she's got a lot to talk about and to say, you know, if reelected, I'll be able to go, hit the ground running and be able to continue to produce for Maine as compared to her opponent, who would be starting at ground zero.
So let's go to these structural changes, Senator. The first one and the easiest one is making the District of Columbia a state. I believe that's unconstitutional. I believe it was clearly anticipated the federal city would never be a state and would not be represented, but this would be a place, you and I are both inside the Beltway, a place where the government would sit, not actually have power beyond its collective power as a geographic point for the meeting of the government. Do your colleagues on the other side understand that? I mean, it's just that Puerto Rico can be a state. That's fine by me. It's just like Hawaii. You can have island states, but you can't make the federal city a state.
Yeah, I think the legal argument there is actually strong, and I think there's also overwhelming pressure on Democrats to try, and probably if they do away with the filibuster, which is the 60-vote margin you need for almost anything in the Senate today, if they take that down to 50 and they use that to bring in D.C., then I think it ends up in the Supreme Court, having gone through probably the district court and the appellate court, which might be interesting. But I think eventually the Supreme Court would probably rule in favor of the federal city because, look, it is clear in the Constitution that they expected this to be the home of government, and and not to be a state for all the right reasons, including not to have a conflict of interest. In fact, that this is the place where the government resides, and it's a relatively small area. So I do think that is one where we'd have a good legal argument.
Now let's turn to court packing, Senator. I have played tape this morning of your longtime colleague Joe Biden in 1983 and 1987, presenting a powerful case against court packing. And reminding people that when FDR brought it forward, he was rejected 70-20, turned it down, and he had 73 senators in his party or aligned with it with the three progressive members. 73 Democrats, and yet court packing failed 70-20 because it's a fundamental destabilizing of the republic. Can you explain to me what are the Democrats thinking by not answering this question?
I think it's a mistake because I think more and more Americans are realizing that this is a massive overreach. And, we've had the 9 justices in place for 150 years. And you're right, back in, I guess it was 1937, Roosevelt had just won an election overwhelmingly, and the New Dealers were in control. And he was upset because, the Supreme Court wasn't doing everything that he wanted. So he said, well, what the heck? I'm going to go ahead and make this next move. But I think Joe Biden said it pretty well back then. He talked about, the fact that this was unconstitutional and inappropriate, and also said that this saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely would apply to this case. And I think he was right then. He also said that those who voted against court packing, who were among those 73 Democrats or New Dealers, showed extraordinary bravery, and he held them up as an example. So I think he was right then and is wrong now.
So, Senator, you represent Ohio well, except for your affection for the Bengals. And by the way, we didn't get to make our annual bet, and I would already won that. But you got to like Joe Burrow. I mean, it's going to be quite the 20 years between Burrow and Baker.
He'll come around. You need a better offensive line. But, man, the Browns are 4-1 for the first time since 1994, since Bill Belichick was your head coach.
I know. It's a wonderful
congratulations.
thing. It's a wonderful thing. I almost drove to Cleveland last weekend because I got my season tickets. But I wanted to ask you do represent the whole state. You do well. Has anyone ever approached you and asked you to expand the Supreme Court? I think this is such a profoundly unrepresentative issue, except for a slice of the hard left. So you've been doing this for 18 years or 20 years, whatever, Congressman, Senator, OMB director. Has anyone ever come up to you and said, we need to expand the Supreme Court?
No, because I think people view it as, changing the rules of the game because you can't win through the legitimate constitutional and legislative process. So people with their votes determine who is in the United States Senate and who's in the presidency, and they in turn appoint these and then in most cases confirm Supreme Court nominees. And that gives the voters the opportunity to weigh in, and that's the way it should be. And of course, that's the way our founders intended it. So I think that's how people, view this. I think this is a basic civics issue. And no, I've never had anybody say it. I have had a lot of people, and I'll probably hear it today again because I'm out about Ohio, say that this just seems wrong somehow. This just doesn't feel right, and it seems like, as I said earlier, a massive overreach. So I don't think it's going to be helpful for the Democrats. I think Joe Biden, before this campaign is over, in the next few weeks, is going to have to come out with a strong position one way or the other. I hope the media finally starts asking him the question and forces him to make that decision.
So, Senator, my last question. You were a colleague and you are a friend of the former vice president, and everybody says Joe Biden's a nice guy. Why won't he answer the question? I mean, why dodge it? What is the upside of that?
Well, I don't know, Hugh. You're a better analyst than I am, but I suppose he's looking at the polls and thinking, I'm going to win, so why would I say that I'm for it and upset the majority of the American people, who would think that this is an overreach? And then why would I say no? And, of course, that would upset my base because the Democratic Party is now led by a much more radicalized base that has the energy and enthusiasm. And so I think he sees it as a no-win politically. But there are lots of issues, where you have to take a position, where you have people on both sides who are not happy about it. And as a presidential candidate, he owes it to the voters. They deserve to know.
I agree with that. I hope he is asked, and I hope he finally gives an answer, as does your colleague, Senator Harris. Senator Rob Portman, always a pleasure. Be safe out there, Senator. I know you never get off the trail, and I appreciate that. Hey, America, whatever you do go and vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com is a sponsor of this program. It's sponsored by the Job Creators Network. They're a sponsor of this show, and I love this campaign because I want people to vote. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican or independent. I want turnout to be the highest that we've ever had. KeepAmericaAmerica.com, especially if you're a never-before voter. I mean, you've never voted. Maybe it never just interested you. Most people don't care about politics like I do or Rob Portman does. They don't care about the Constitution the way that lawyers do. But this is the year. If you've never voted, you've got to go and vote. How do you register? Today's the last day to register in Virginia, for example. Go to keepamericaamerica.com for information and help. And do a little, do a lot. Commit to get one other voter to the polls. Go bring your neighbor who's never voted, your church colleague, your work colleague, a member of your family. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. Go and find out how to vote and then go and vote. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Just a few minutes ago, let's remind everybody. So there's the Hunter Biden scandal, Ukraine. Hunter Biden's primary business partner, both at Burisma, the Ukrainian company, on many other things, including the China things, is a guy named Devon Archer. And back in 2018,
Kerry was involved as well. Kerry's stepson.
That was a third partner on some of the business ventures,
like Rosemont Seneca.
Right. His name was Christopher Hines. He didn't have anything to do with Burisma.
Okay.
But he did have to do with some of the other ones. But
so tell us about this other partner.
Devon Archer was the primary driving force on almost all of Hunter's big deals: the China deals, the Burisma deal, the Kazakhstan deal, the Russia deal about the Russian oligarch, the one that Joe Biden claimed wasn't true, but it is.
You mean the $3.5 million?
And you know what it is? It's more than $3.5 million. According to the documents the FBI obtained in Devon Archer's criminal case, which we're going to talk about, it was $200 million that came in for Yelena Baturina.
Well, she's a billionaire.
She is, so $200 million is, a little bit of money.
Right.
Yeah. And the FBI's known that. So it's that case. Devon Archer in 2018 was convicted of fraud in a case up in New York. And then mysteriously, a few months after the jury verdict, the judge set aside only his verdict. The other men in the case were continued to be viewed as
only
guilty.
Devon Archer.
Only Devon Archer was excised from the case and freed, and the guilty verdict overturned. The Justice Department appealed. The wheels of justice turned slow. But at 4 o'clock, just a few minutes ago, the Second District Court of Appeals in New York reinstated the guilty plea, saying the judge had no right to come up with their own theory of the case and throw out Devon Archer's conviction.
So the prosecution say the judge can't just throw out a guilty verdict.
Exactly. And more importantly, because I think this has some application to the Mike Flynn case.
Yes.
The judge was scolded for developing their own theory of the case.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
But last night, I'm going into it. I've known Mike Pence for 30 years. I knew he was going to be the polished gentleman that he always is, a consistent Christian, very capable of keeping his testimony intact when he's in front of people. And I was waiting to see if the Kamala from about the third or fourth primary debate, remember where she was just like hacking at Joe Biden and she was just out of control. We didn't get that Kamala Harris last night, but the one we did get was someone who still obviously gets very angry about things and can't keep that from expressing it on her face. And all you had to do was read some of the Twitter activity during the debate. Megyn Kelly calling her out on, she's like, even if you feel it, don't wear it on your face, lady.
I try to filter out my own biases. I tried to be aware of my own biases. And I'm thinking, do I not like her just because I don't like her positions? Do I not like her? But there does seem to be something cloying and annoying about the way she comes across.
On the optics alone, and all you have to do is just look at the average number of polls that are being done by individual news stations that carried the debate and so forth last night, all across Twitter. I have not seen a poll come in from an independent journalism outlet or think tank group that has not said that Pence won in a landslide last night. And I don't think that that was purely on policy, because I think a lot of those places don't agree with Mike Pence on policy. I think that is a reflection of how she comes across personality-wise.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
You know, after all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate. I just spoke to Steve.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt, day 2 of Judge Amy Coney Barrett's hearing to become an associate justice of the Supreme Court. I'll be covering it with Senator John Cornyn, a member of the Judiciary Committee, at the bottom of the hour. You may have listened yesterday. She was so eloquent, but we did get a powerful reminder yesterday of how important the Alliance Defending Freedom is to you and to me. Everyone in our country benefits from the work of the ADF. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, I played the whole thing in the first hour. I want you to hear this again. He is fed up with the veiled references and the not so veiled references to Judge Barrett's Catholic faith, and it said it's time for Americans to stand up for religious freedom.
And I would just say to my Democrat colleagues, these years now, this pattern and practice, as we say in the law, of religious bigotry, because that's what it is. When you tell somebody that they're too Catholic to be on the bench, when you tell them they're going to be a Catholic judge, not an American judge, that's bigotry. The pattern and practice of bigotry from members of this committee must stop. And I would expect that it be renounced.
I think it should be renounced. I have not heard anyone yet renounce it, but I will tell you this. You can support Alliance Defending Freedom, which defends everyone of faith and of no faith at all. Founded by a great Catholic man, Alan Sears, and who's retired now. And Alan, if you're listening, just God bless you, and Paula. I just think that ADF does the most for the most people. It protects the religious liberty, the first freedom, and it protects free speech, which is necessary to being an American. And it does it. They've won 11 cases at the Supreme Court in the last 11 years. 9 years, 11 wins in 9 years. To support Alliance Defending Freedom, go to HughHewitt.com. Go to the very top. They're sponsors of this show, and I am sponsors of them. I write checks to them, and I waive honorarium for them. And I love talking to the Blackstone Fellows, because the Blackstone Fellows are the very best group for 1Ls, first-year law students, to get a job in the first summer after law school. I love talking to the Blackstone Fellows. I think Amy Coney Barrett may be attacked for having done so in the past. But what you can do, whether it's a widow's mite of $10 or you can give $10 million, Alliance Defending Freedom will keep this country free. They will protect religious liberty. Go and contribute $100, whatever you can. All you can do is fight for freedom by giving, and you can do that at the top of HughHewitt.com. Find the ADF banner or call 866-359-9644. Let me check the markets for you, because yesterday was quite the day. This is brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian, together they are AndrewandTodd.com. 888-888-1172. If you want to borrow money to buy a house, you want to refinance your house, you want to buy an investment property, you want to get into rentals, you want to get into helping your son or daughter get into a home by being a non-occupying co-borrower, or just something as basic as getting money out to pay for college, or to add a kitchen. You're spending more time at home and you want to improve, remodel your house, and you want to get a home loan or a second. AndrewandTodd.com lend money. And they're honest, and they're as fast as possible, and they give you good advice, and they will never lend you money you shouldn't borrow, and they will tell you not to do something, and they will not add points and fees and the kind of stuff that the slippery folks in that business do. Andrew and Todd are great guys. I've known them forever. I mean, I've known Andrew for 20 plus years. I've known Todd for 8 years. That's what I mean by forever. 888-888-1172 or go to andrewandtodd.com. Yesterday was a humongous rally on NASDAQ, up more than 250 points. The headline this morning at CNN Business, nothing can keep tech stocks down as Apple and Amazon shine. Now, I am not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but Amazon Prime Day has begun today and it continues today and tomorrow. I think that the permanent changes to the consuming patterns brought about COVID make that a winner, along with Target and Walmart. I don't own Target and Walmart. I own Amazon, but I must tell you, I'm not a genius. I just bought it because I just think they're taking over the retail space, and the old brick and mortar retailers are finished. But whatever you believe, if you need money to pay for something you haven't got, or you want to set aside money for the future college costs you've got coming, borrow it against your house now at andrewandtodd.com. 888-888-1172. Very quickly, don't go anywhere, because I've got John Cornyn coming up. He is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and you don't want to miss him here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people. But there were a whole lot of people who stayed in the neighborhood for a while, and then they realized a lot of their sons and daughters were being picked on and bullied by a lot of these black kids living in the neighborhood. There was even black flight as well. And Michelle Obama does not mention that. It's really curious, isn't it? She said when she was complaining about white flight, she said, quote, and I'm quoting her, "Y'all still running," close quote. Again, fascinating how people like Oprah Winfrey can just insult white people, call them bigots, and then they still say that she's respectable and we just love them. We just love her. And y'all still running? Really?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And politically speaking, you got a Democrat candidate who's got a plan to pack the Supreme Court with 4 liberal justices because they can't accept the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is going to lead to a 6-3 conservative majority. And they don't know what to do about it. So all they can do is say, well, we'll change the rules. We got to win. And then we're going to pack the court. Biden doubled down yesterday on refusing to answer the question.
They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question, y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun. But 4 million or so people have already voted.
Think about that. A guy who's running for president doesn't want to tell you what he's going to do because he's afraid the media is going to write about it. The media is going to report on it. And the media just says, okay, makes sense to me. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, the president, all right, not going to have a virtual debate next week because he's not going to sit in front of a computer. So instead of virtually debating Joe Biden, he's going to hold a campaign rally. And people are going to lose their minds.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Day of celebration and jubilation has turned into a news cycle of condemnation and of a media circus unlike anything I've seen in recent memory. At times, I believe that the laws of nature and just basic Newtonian physics don't apply to the members of the activist media. So the president was discharged from the hospital, flies back on Marine One, comes back to the White House triumphantly, should be a symbol of conquering and of victory, should be a moment that should be kind of just a post-political moment. But instead of just trying to take a couple hours off and a couple days off, the activist media leans in more than ever before to try and attack the president for not properly wearing his mask or not being completely forthright with everything around the Chinese coronavirus. In fact, some members of the media, Mika Brzezinski, she suggested manslaughter. Let's go to cut 7.
But I'm just wondering, he's pushing all this against the advice of the professionals in his government, right, against the advice of scientists. Right. At some point, isn't this manslaughter? I mean, if you purposefully put people in a position where you send a deadly virus their way.
Purposefully send a deadly virus their way. CNN also had a very aggressive take on it after the president got back to the White House being discharged from the hospital. Walter Reed, President Trump was under attack by CNN reporters trying to shame him for taking off his mask at home.
33 minutes after the hour inside the Beltway. I'm Hugh Hewitt, America, joined now by Senator John Cornyn of the great state of Texas. Senator Cornyn, good morning and welcome back.
Thank you, Hugh. Good to be with you.
Now, I always remind people you are the only United States senator who is also a former Supreme Court justice, not the federal Supreme Court, but the Texas Supreme Court. So you have a unique, indeed invaluable position on the committee. What did you make of yesterday's opening round of Judge Barrett's hearings?
Well, I think our Democratic friends decided they didn't want to go down the path of anti-Catholicism and bigotry, at least explicitly. There was some reference to Griswold versus Connecticut, which Josh Hawley aptly picked up as a sort of in disguise a big Catholic bigotry. But I think what was most remarkable to me is they didn't talk about the judge much at all. They talked about the Affordable Care Act, predicting how judges may rule in the future is a pretty risky business. We've seen that happen a number of times where people predicted just because a judge was, nominated by this party or that party that they were going to rule in this particular way. But that's the marvels of an independent judiciary, which is really our crown jewels.
Now, Senator Cornyn, with our legal firepower on that committee, I think of Josh Hawley, clerk to the Chief Justice. I think of Ted Cruz, who won so many cases in the Supreme Court. I think of you, it's the Supreme Court Justice, that they don't want to really get into issues of court packing or of the fundamental stability of the Republic. But I hope we do. This is a bipartisan issue, in my view. We cannot expand the Supreme Court, nor can we be confused as to what court packing means. It is a fundamental assault on the Republic.
No question about it, Hugh. And I think you'll hear a lot more about that today. Yesterday was the speechifying. Today we actually get to ask questions and hear from the judge herself. And I think there are going to be a lot of questions about the independence of the judiciary, turning it into another legislative body. Even Justice Ginsburg cautioned against court packing, adding additional partisan judges to the courts, and it would destroy the nature of the judiciary itself to be an independent arbiter of what the law is.
Now, I do want to talk for a moment about something that threatens to drive my audience away, severability. I remarked on Twitter yesterday, one of the reasons I am very glad never to have been even considered to be a federal judge nor put up my hand is it gives me a headache to talk about severability, and certainly to rule on severability would be a nightmare. I don't know if you ever had to do that as a justice, John Cornyn. Did you? Do you recall any Texas cases on severability?
Absolutely. And, just in a nutshell, Hugh, it's judges are required to uphold a statute unless it's unconstitutional. And if part of it is unconstitutional, then they can sever that out and leave the rest intact. And in fact, that's what I think many court watchers are predicting. That's really the conservative way of judging. It would not be conservative to say because part of the statute's unconstitutional, we're going to strike the whole thing down, which is what Democrats are predicting. I think they're wrong.
I think they're wrong, too. Now, originally, I understand the common sense argument. Chief Justice Roberts upheld ACA because it was a tax. You repealed the tax, therefore it must fall. But Professor Adler at Case Western and many others have persuaded me, no, in fact, when you repealed the tax, you strengthened the argument that it was severable. And I believe it's dispositive, and I believe the court will rule probably 8-1 that the ACA remains. But they're putting all of their chips on that really obscure argument. Do you think that's persuasive?
No, it's a political argument. I mean, most of the diatribes you heard yesterday were directed at President Trump, and they claimed that the judge was a party to a vast conspiracy to destroy the ACA, which, by the way, Hugh, Democrats have moved on from the ACA. They realize now with the high premiums and the high deductibles that it didn't meet the promises, the extravagant promises that President Obama and others made. Now they're into government-run Medicare for all, which, as you know, will destroy Medicare as we know it and deny tens of millions of people their coverage that they get from their employer. But that's what this is about. This is a political argument, not a legal argument.
Are you grading this for civility? I think Chris Coons, one of the people I admire the most in the Senate on the Democratic side is Chris Coons, and I think he remains civil at all times. But yesterday, Senator Whitehouse, in his references to the president, when President Obama was there for 8 years, I always referred to him as President Obama because it's the office, right? And is this a new level of incivility towards the president?
Yeah, I think it's just a new level of incivility, period. It was... Again, they want to stir up their political base and sort of pour gasoline on Trump derangement syndrome because I think that helps them. And you may have noticed that in their comments, whether it's Senator Whitehouse or others, they name names on the committee: Lindsey Graham, me, Joni Ernst, Tom Tillis, all of whom are on the ballot. And this was all directed at politics and the election and fundraising. I'm sure they're going to reap a bunch of money on their internet portal site because they're going to stir up their base, and that's what they're trying to do. They're using this as a political event, not as a confirmation hearing.
Well, I can't understand is they helped your reelection in Texas yesterday because the argument against you was that you've appointed great Texans to the federal bench.
I'm happy to stand guilty of that accusation, Hugh. It was kind of jaw dropping.
Judge Willett, Judge Ho, these are terrific judges that Texans are very proud of, and they're attacking you and Ted Cruz for putting Lone Star State judges on it. I just shaking my head. So I come back to the overarching issue. Will she be confirmed, and when do you think she'll be heard and dispatched from the committee to the floor of the Senate?
She will be voted out of the committee no later than October the 22nd. As you know, under our arcane rules that we've talked about before, there is this holdover period, but Senator Graham has done a good job of making sure we can have a safe and civil hearing, and we're on a glide path to get her out of committee on October the 22nd, and she's then available for the majority leader to put the nomination on the floor and get her confirmed before the election.
I can't even imagine how they could attack Judge Barrett in the way that Justice Kavanaugh was. But have you had any signals of a storm cloud? Have there been any secret letters that get released after the hearing hinted about?
I think that's one reason they're so frustrated. There's not much to work with. A mother of seven, and just somebody with a stellar record like hers. So, really, as I mentioned a moment ago, they're insulting the judge by suggesting she will violate her judicial oath by ordaining a outcome in a case that she hasn't even heard yet. I mean, this is like a triple bank shot, and I just don't think it holds up under any kind of scrutiny.
Senator Cornyn, I've been teaching for 25 years at the Fowler School of Law at Chapman, so I have two concerns. One is she's gotten student reviews for 20 years. She's been Teacher of the Year like 3 times, but nevertheless, every set of student reviews is a bell curve. Someone doesn't like you, and you always get slammed. I think they're going to produce a student or two that didn't like her. And I also think because she served on the appointments committee, as I did for like 10 years at Chapman, we're going to find a disappointed job seeker somewhere, and they're going to be produced at the last moment. Any rumblings about either of those category of attack witnesses?
No, I haven't heard anything, but, that's not much to work with. But I agree with you that that's a possibility. But I think, we'll just have to see. Hopefully no secret letters that the ranking member is hiding and will spring on us late in the confirmation hearing. But I wouldn't put anything past them based on what we saw in the Kavanaugh hearing.
Last question. Have we heard anything from Michael Avenatti in federal prison?
No, thankfully. That's the silver lining in this confirmation hearing. No Michael Avenatti.
All right. Okay. I lied. One last question on court packing. They have a talking point, and I very rarely say that, but their talking point is now saying judicial reform instead of court packing. Everybody knows court packing means adding seats to the Supreme Court. Everybody knows that. Do they look at you off camera and admit that this is an attempt to go Orwell? Do they ever just admit it?
No. They have drunk the Kool-Aid, Hugh, and they're true believers, and they think that the means is justified by the end. And for them, it's about power, and it's the destruction, in my opinion, of an independent judiciary, which is really, as I said earlier, the crown jewels of our system.
It will destabilize the republic. So good luck, Senator, and I appreciate your coming on. I look forward to the questioning today. I'm one of the few people out there that actually will listen to it all. I appreciate your joining me, Senator.
Thanks, Hugh.
I want to play Mazie Hirono on Meet the Press Daily yesterday with Chuck Todd, cut 24.
Those are two different ways that you can provide Supreme Court reform. But as I said, I've been thinking about this for a while. You can have circuit court judges circulating, but through the Supreme Court. But, this is not the kind of thing that every idea will have possibly unintended consequences. And so we should have a serious discussion about it, which, by the way, the Republicans have absolutely no interest as they continue to place on the federal judiciary at all levels these totally ideologically driven judges. They know that. You got the Federalist Society. You have the Judicial Crisis Network spending millions of dollars to get Amy Barrett on this court.
I played that because she used the new code, judicial reform. That is court packing. The idea of circulating circuit court judges through the Supreme Court would require a constitutional amendment. All right, that's the bottom line. If they want to put forward a constitutional amendment to add a rotating circuit court judge to the Supreme Court, fine. It's like the D.C. Circuit. Making D.C. a state. It does not hold constitutional water. But they say this stuff. They just say this stuff. Here's my friend Chris Coons, cut number 25.
Judge, I'm deeply concerned about ways in which your approach to something that may sound abstract to folks watching stare decisis or precedent, that means your approach to reviewing and reconsidering and possibly overturning long-settled cases may overturn some of the very principles for which Justice Ginsburg fought her entire adult life, principles that protect settled, fundamental rights for all Americans. What might this mean? Cases like Griswold versus Connecticut that establish married couples have a right to obtain and use contraception in the privacy of their own home may
right there.
Be in danger of.
There is no chance, none, zero, zip, nada, that Griswold would ever be overturned. None. The Chief Justice's concurrence and Citizens United talked about those times when stare decisis will allow a court to review and overrule a prior precedent. It's when it's obviously wrong and obviously unpopular. It's important that it be settled, but not that it be wrong. Griswold v. Connecticut is right. And literally nobody argues that it's wrongly decided. So I hope Senator Coons takes my invitation to appear on the show. He will. I will be as courteous as anyone can be because I really like Chris. I think he's a terrific guy. But that was out of the blue. You know, it's not out of the blue. ReliefFactor.com. It's very predictable, actually, that I tell you about it right now because I do it every single day that I'm on the air. I take it in the first hour. I remind you in hours 2 and 3 because different people listen at different times. You know, I love the Talkers magazine listed me as the 8th most popular talk show host in America with 8.5 million people listening. I don't want you to get the sense that 8.5 million people are listening at any one time. That's not true. People leave and they drive and they get to work or they listen in the kitchen or they do whatever they do. Listen. I do it 3 times a day because different people listen to the radio at different times. But if that's you, don't forget to get ReliefFactor.com off the shelf. Take it this morning or get a first order and come right back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And let me ask you the obvious question. Maybe I'm naive. Why would any party wish to pack the Supreme Court? What would their objective be, Andy?
Well, obviously, it's the same objective that FDR had when he was slapped down by his own party trying to do it back in the New Deal days, and that is in order to convert the tribunal from its last vestige as a judicial institution into a super legislature that basically imposes the political will of the party that packed it. So obviously it's completely political, and it would really destroy our system, Seb, because the framers constructed a system of sort of competitive institutions. So our liberty depends on no one actor getting an accumulation of too much power.
Right.
And part of that is making the Supreme Court a judicial, apolitical institution. That's why it's insulated from the electoral process. If you turn it into a political institution and it's just a proxy of Congress, that throws the whole system at a whack, and you have nothing left to protect minority rights, which I would think would be of interest not only to people on the right, but to people on the left, because, you know, two can play this game and it never has a happy end.
Yeah, checks and balances would be over. Follow him right now, Andrew C. McCarthy on Twitter.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I want to go back to Pence. I was really genuinely stunned and impressed at his self-control. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you did not get the impression, which the media sometimes wants to give you, is that he's dull, that he's a dud. You could see the fire within. I think many people saw him as incredibly presidential. And thought, my goodness, you could think what you want of Trump, but he picked this guy to replace him if something goes wrong. That's a pretty good pick.
When Trump or Biden are sworn in January of 2021, they will be the oldest president coming into office for a term. 74 or 78 will beat the all-time age limits. And so I think, particularly because of the discussion about whether or not Biden would even complete a term, I think the focus on Kamala Harris being a potential president really put that debate under that kind of spotlight. Would these people make a good president if the top guy goes down? And with Biden's health issues and certainly with the president catching COVID, I just think we've seen the humanity and kind of the frailty of the people that can be in that office pretty upfront. So that is a relevant question at this point in time. And there's no question about last night that Mike Pence had command not only of what he needed to say and what he wanted to get across, but the kind of have.
51 minutes after the hour, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Senator Tom Cotton joins me from Arkansas. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be on with you as always.
Thank you. I wanted to talk to you about pre-existing conditions because I listened to the Senate Judiciary Committee, of which you were not a member yesterday, and I was frustrated because I am unaware of even one Republican senator who wants to exclude pre-existing conditions from any health reform going forward. Is that a straw man to end all straw men?
Yeah, of course it is, Hugh. And of course, Republicans want to protect every American's coverage, whether they have a pre-existing condition or not. But I got to say, you said you watched the Senate Judiciary Committee. When I tuned in, I thought I'd stumbled into a hearing of the Senate Health Committee.
Yes.
Because the Democrats kept talking about Obamacare, and they didn't talk at all about the law or about the Constitution. It is not Judge Barrett's role or the Supreme Court's role in our constitutional system to set healthcare policy. It's Congress's role, working with the president. And I suspect that Judge Barrett will remind those senators today that the Supreme Court doesn't decide healthcare policy. It's Congress. Now, Congress made a lot of bad mistakes with Obamacare. That's what forced insurance rates up so high. It's what taxed individual Americans with a penalty because they couldn't afford the insurance that Obamacare made unaffordable in the first place. The Democrats don't want to talk about those problems with Obamacare. They want to focus on this straw man that the Supreme Court is somehow going to take away people's health insurance. Of course that's not going to happen. The only thing that took away people's health insurance is Obamacare. What the Republicans want to do is protect coverage for every American, including those with pre-existing conditions, but make that coverage more affordable, make that coverage more personally suitable for each individual family.
And I do believe they decided from some focus group, but I think that focus group was drunk. Because if they thought that was effective yesterday, it just wasn't. Our side had very effective, ours being Republican, had very effective appeals to the tradition and norms of the committee. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she appeared in 1993, developed the Ginsburg rule, which is that a nominee must never comment on a matter that might come before the court or is a live controversy. Do you believe, I do, but do you believe that prevents her from saying that she will recuse herself in any controversy? Because that is to decide the controversy.
Well, yes, Hugh, because there's a legal standard in the federal code that determines when a judge should or should not recuse herself. But more broadly, Hugh, I would simply say, of course, a justice cannot recuse himself or herself simply because the president who nominated that justice is a litigant or his administration is a litigant. Otherwise, you'd have people recusing themselves for years and years. And there's a long-standing precedent to include justices like Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor deciding dozens and dozens of cases in which Barack Obama or his administration was a litigant. So, of course, Justice Barrett, once she is confirmed, should not recuse herself simply because Donald Trump or his campaign or his administration is a litigant. Now, that's not to pre-decide any specific question, but as a general matter, justices have always decided cases involving the presidents who nominated them.
And I believe then a litigant would be deprived of a fair opportunity to make their case on recusal or against it when it arose. Last question, Senator. I may bore my audience to death, but the prospect of court packing is chilling. It is destructive of the republic. I can't believe Joe Biden won't renounce it. I can't believe your colleagues are trying to talk about it. When will the Senate bring this to the floor and dispatch it? Because honestly, I'd like to see a test vote on this.
Yeah, I would be happy to vote next week when the Senate's back in session on whether or not we should expand the court by 2 or 4 or 6 justices. Let's see what the Democrats think before they know the outcome of this election. But the more fundamental point, Hugh, is that this would be a radical restructuring of our independent judiciary. It would fundamentally undercut the legitimacy of the Supreme Court and our court system. That's one reason not even FDR, at the height of his political power in 1937, was able to pack the courts, simply because he didn't like the outcomes of the court's decisions. And for the Democrats to even be suggesting it's a possibility shows how far to the left they've gone. Because what does a packed court mean? It means a Supreme Court that rubber stamps liberal laws to take Americans' guns, to force them to use their tax dollars to pay for abortion, to dictate how they can worship their own God, to take away their property, sometimes even their home, and give it to well-connected multinational corporations. That's why the Democrats are talking about packing the court.
I believe it falls flat. So we have 50 seconds. I wish you would have this debate. I don't know if there's time for this debate. Do you expect, again, to have a vote on Judge Barrett next week?
The Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to vote on her next week. I don't know if we'll move right to the consideration on the floor. The Democrats have the ability under Senate rules to gum up the works for a few days, Hugh, but not enough to stop it, and certainly not enough to prevent us from confirming Justice Barrett before the election on November 3rd.
It's very good news, Senator Cotton. Thank you, and I appreciate your joining us. Thank you, Dwayne and Adam. Thank you, Ben and Harley. Thanks to every single person we're doing, and to Danielle who's doing our booking. We're doing a lot of senators in the last 3 weeks because this is a crucial moment in time. But meanwhile, remember, we need those senators to remain in the majority. LindseyGraham.com, all of them, Martha McSally, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis. They need your help. I've listed their campaigns at HughHewitt.com. Scroll down to find them. Be as generous as you can. The Senate must stay in Republican hands. I'll be back tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.